Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. And tonight we have the live game reaction to the round of 32 matchup between Maryland and Alabama. This should be a fantastic game right here. You've got the top seed Alabama going up against number 8 seed Maryland Terrapins out of the Big Ten. But the Crimson Tide, the top seed Crimson Tide, have had a fantastic season. Some people are a little worried about Alabama with Brandon Miller and his potential, growing injury, limiting Alabama in this tournament from being able to go as far as they want to go. But Alabama has a lot of other players on their roster that are really talented. But still, Maryland could pose a challenge. There's been a lot of upsets in college basketball, so many great games. And overall, no team is safe. Any team can beat any team at any given time. And that's what makes March Madness so much fun. But this should be an awesome game to round out the Saturday games of the round of 32. And I'm definitely looking forward to this game for sure. It should be a lot of fun. Inside the pylons here, thanks, May says, yo. This game should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. Easy money. He's looking forward to the game as well. He says, about game time, Jeffrey. Roll Tide, roll. He says, hey, pylon. There you are. I left and came back. Sorry, easy money. I was a little behind, a little late, but I'm definitely here. The game hasn't started yet, but this should be a fantastic game. I know you're looking forward to it, hoping the Crimson Tide move on to the Sweet 16, but if they play a really good game, then they have a really good chance to do that. This should be an awesome game. I mean, March Madness is delivered this year. There have been so many great games overall. You look at all the upsets that there have been, and some of them have been shock, or some of them actually people predicted. I think a lot of people thought Furman would beat Virginia, but Princeton, that game was crazy, beating Arizona. And then obviously FDU beating Purdue, that was the big one. That game, a lot of people were blown away at that one, but Purdue's style of play failed them again. But this game right here should be really interesting between Alabama and Maryland. I think Maryland's a team that matches up kind of well with Alabama. I think that they can, maybe pose a challenge. They've got a pretty quick team. But I do think overall that Alabama definitely has the deeper team. They have a lot of talent. They have 30-5 and 16-2 in the SEC. They won the SEC regular season title and the conference tournament title. So Alabama sweeping that. Maryland, they went 22-12 and 11-9 in the Big Ten. Kevin Willard in his first season as the head coach of Maryland after he came over from Seton Hall. And you look at Nate Oates, he's been in Alabama for a few seasons, but he did a really great job at Buffalo. So I think that both coaches are really solid, but Nate Oates probably has the advantage, especially with tournament experience. But Alabama probably has the talent edge, but Maryland definitely going to probably play scrappy basketball and will have a shot to win if they play really well. Hummus Hero, he says, hey, Jeffrey and friends, thanks for being here, Hummus Hero. Glad you can make it tonight. This should be a great game. Easy Money says, last time we played Maryland, we stomped them in the round of 32 2 years ago. We slaughtered them with threes. Well, if Alabama is shooting high-level threes, they should beat Maryland again. I actually do remember that game, but that was when Mark Turgeon was the head coach for Maryland before he ended up resigning, and Danny Manning was the interim head coach last year for most of the season. But Maryland, they've had some solid teams, but they haven't been a great team in a long time since the Gary Williams era. Hummus here, he said this Penn State-Texas game looks to be going down the wire. That game's been really good. Penn State is a team that they shoot a lot of threes, and that definitely helps them out. But they're up right now, 58-57 on Texas. They could win. That would be a huge win for the Big Ten. But Northwestern, they're down by 10 against UCLA. The Bruins are playing some solid basketball. Northwestern not able to make shots. But Penn State, they're a dangerous team. If they're making their shots, then they have a really good chance to beat almost anyone in the country. Easy Money says, hey, Hummus, what's happening? Glad you guys are both here. Easy Money says, really, I'll check. It is Penn State hitting threes for sure. But they're showing Brandon Miller right now. Brandon Miller was held scoreless in their last game against Texas A&M Corpus Christi for Alabama. He had 0 points. The only time this season he's been held scoreless, but he has a growing injury. He's probably going to have a minutes restriction again tonight. But if Alabama is winning this game and they're consistently in control, then I think overall Alabama will not need him to play most of the game. But Alabama starting lineup, Mark Sears, Javon Quinterly, Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, Charles Bediako. And for Maryland, Jameer Young, Don Carey, Hakeem Hart, Dante Scott, and Julian Reese will start for the Terps. Both solid starting lineups, a lot of experience, a lot of talent, especially on the Alabama side. But it will be an interesting matchup for sure. Easy Money, He said Penn State is up a point on Texas. I checked about primarily be watching my Crimson Tide. For sure. I'll definitely be keeping up with the updates on the scores. Texas just retook the lead on Penn State, 59-58. So that game looks to be going down to the wire. But Maryland and Alabama is about to tip. And Brandon Miller, he's on the floor, even if he's not 100%. But Alabama gets the basketball first. Javon Quinterly has had a solid season. He's been playing better and better as the season's gone along, following his ACL injury from last season. He returned midseason, has definitely boosted the Crimson Tide down the stretch. But Brandon Miller, he misses his first shot of the game, and Maryland with the basketball. Maryland has a pretty solid team overall. Jameer Young, the transfer from Charlotte, has been a big addition for Kevin Willard. Julian Reese is a really good player. His sister, Angel Reese, is a fantastic women's player for LSU. But Julian Reese down low, 2-0 for the Terps. Good start for the Terrapins. Julian Reese is averaging 11 points per game. Oh, man, easy money, not happy. I'm already yelling at the TV, but we'll be all right. Maryland turns Alabama over. And Alabama's seeking their 10th Sweet 16 of all time. But Dante Scott on the block kicks to Jameer Young. Jameer Young takes a 2, and it's 4-0 Maryland. Really good start for the Terps. Can't ask for a much better start. 18:40 to go in the first half, and it's 4-0 Maryland. Jameer Young averaging 16 points per game, but Javon Quinterly with a really good floater. It's 4-2. Alabama trying to settle in. Jameer Young, a really good player for Kevin Willard's squad. He's led the team all season long in scoring. Really good passer. Shoots the ball at a good rate. But Julian Reese on the block for Maryland. He scores again. It's 6-2 Maryland. Terps getting whatever they want early. Inside the pile said, how is everyone? Doing really good. Thanks for being here. He says we're 0-2, Jeffrey. You're probably referring to the XFL. That's tough. But Alabama trying to drive on the block. Maryland almost turned him over. But out to Javon Quinterly. He's driving in. And what a block by Maryland. Julian Reese with the board. It's 6-2 Maryland. 17:30 to go in the first. And Don Carey for 3. And Maryland is up 9-2. That's not good at all for the Crimson Tide. Maryland's 4 of 4 from the field. Brandon Miller, he misses the shot, but he does get fouled. Something he is very good at. He's really good at drawing fouls. But a really good start for Maryland. It's a 9-2 lead for the Terps. 17:21 to go in the first. They're getting the ball down low to Julian Reese. They've hit a couple jump shots. That's definitely the way you want to start out against a number 1 seeded team. But Brandon Miller, the SEC Player of the Year, averaging 19 points and 8 boards. He's at the line and he scores. He was held scoreless in the last game, but he gets on the board this time. He has another free throw. 9-4. Inside the pile, it says USA is down 7-5 against Venezuela. That's tough. He says, what's your assessment of Arkansas's upset over Kansas 72-71? I know a lot of people will talk about, Bill Self not coaching, which could be a reason. And it is tough, for Bill Self not coaching. Prayers for him. Hopefully he'll have a speedy recovery. And he'll be okay. But overall, I think that Kansas did play a good game. But still, you see a team like Maryland in this game, the way they're playing to start this game against Alabama. Maryland's playing really scrappy, hitting some shots, and that's what Arkansas did. Arkansas scrapped all game long against Kansas, doing what Maryland's doing early in this one. Now, can Maryland sustain it for 40 minutes? I have no idea. But Arkansas, they were down early, but they kept clawing and fighting, doing everything they could, and then they started to get shots to fall. When Devontae Davis got hot for Arkansas in the second half, then they were able to retake the lead, and then it went back and forth, and then they got ahead late, and they held on to the lead. I just think overall Arkansas out-toughed Kansas late. It was a really good performance for the Razorbacks. And Eric Musselman has done a fantastic job because he's taken Arkansas to 2 Elite Eights in the last 2 years, and they could go to another one. They're in the Sweet 16. So I think it's a really good performance, but it means there's going to be no repeat champion, but a great performance from the Razorbacks. Easy Money says, I'm yelling at on TV Palm, but not worried. Bama will shut them down in a second. They'll put up 200 points in a heartbeat, maybe exaggerating a little. And I don't know about the 200 points. I mean, they have hit 100 a couple times this year, but that might be stretching it a little bit, but you never know. Easy Money says, Palm, wow, what a game. Arkansas did it, though. Go SEC, Missouri, and Auburn lost, though. Well, Auburn couldn't make a free throw. Javon Quinterly for Alabama hits a big three. It's down to 2, 9-7, Maryland. But yeah, Auburn couldn't make a free throw against Houston and Missouri. They did not have a good game at all. And Princeton's now in the Sweet 16. You got your Cinderella story, it seems, for sure. But Arkansas played fantastic. Alabama's starting to apply some pressure. Mark Sears on Dante Scott. Dante Scott misses a 2, but they do call a foul, so Maryland will have 2 free throws. Mark Sears does not like it. He didn't think he fouled, but he might have got Dante Scott on the arm. But Dante Scott will be shooting a couple free throws. He's had a good season for Maryland. He's had some ups and downs. Easy Money says Auburn was being Auburn second half. It's okay. It's Auburn. I don't mind. For sure, it's your rival. But Dante Scott hits the first. It's 10-7. Maryland with a 3-point lead. Dante Scott at 11 points and 8 rebounds against West Virginia. He was 4 for 7 from the field in that game. But he hits both free throws. So Maryland still with a 2-possession lead over the Crimson Tide. 11-7, 16-20 to go in the first. Terps are playing well early, but they will have to sustain it all game long, which will be tough against the talented Crimson Tide. Charles Bediako goes up. He gets fouled. He does not make the shot, but he will have 2 free throws. He's been a really good post player for Alabama this season. He's definitely improved from last year. But Alabama has a really talented roster overall at every position. Bediako had 9 points, 8 boards, and 4 blocks in their first round game. But he has 2 free throws. And he misses the first. Free throws are really important in March Madness. You got to make your free throws. Auburn showed that by missing all theirs, and Houston hit all their free throws, and Houston won the game. But Bediako, he misses the first. He has a chance to hit the second. Bediako, he knocks it down. So it's 11-8, a 1-possession game. Maryland clinging to a 3-point lead, but it looks like Texas might hold on against Penn State at 65-60 Texas with 42 seconds left. Not over yet. But Jameer Young on the right block for the Terps. He misses the shot, and they call it an over and back on Maryland. So it's Alabama basketball. But a pretty good start early for Maryland, but Alabama hanging tough, trying to claw back into the game. But it has been a good start for both teams overall. You definitely expect that from Alabama, the way they're playing this season, to play well. But Maryland definitely giving the Crimson Tide some fits early in this game, but they're definitely going to have to play well the whole entire game, which will be tough. I don't know if Maryland can go a full 40. But if Maryland can play 40 minutes of really good basketball against Alabama, you never know. But it has been a good start to the game for both teams. I think both teams are playing really solid. I think it's one of those things for Maryland, how they're going to be able to win. It's just effort. If you give maximum effort for 40 minutes, even if you're not making all your shots, I think that a team can get upset. Because Arkansas overall, one of their best players on the team, Ricky Council, he had 18 points, but he was like 5 of 19 from the floor. He had a rough shooting night, but Arkansas just had effort. Arkansas played hard all game long. They stayed in the race in that game, did everything they possibly could to beat Kansas, and they did. They found a way to win just because they out-hustled the Jayhawks. And I think overall, if you're looking at this game here, Maryland's going to have to do that all game. If Maryland can out-hustle the Crimson Tide for a full game, I think they can win, but it's going to be very interesting. Easy Money said they fouled our big man for sure. Easy Money says our team is size, couple of expectations Quinterly, but he can slice and dice the defense when he's on. For sure, they definitely have the size advantage over Maryland, but size isn't always the most important thing. Oh, if you just play hard, if you're an undersized team, you saw FDU the way they did against Purdue. They were undersized at every position, but they hung tough, and they were only out-rebounded by 7. That was effort. Fairleigh Dickinson just had effort against Purdue. So Maryland's just going to have to play with maximum effort if they want to out-rebound or, get close to out-rebounding Alabama and have a chance to win. But Alabama can use their size advantage to their advantage. And I think they have a good chance to win as well. Hummus Hero says, I'm trying to watch the baseball game and basketball both, laughing out loud. Definitely. It's fun to watch 2 games at the same time, but you don't want to miss anything. But thanks for being here, everybody. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Thanks so much for being here. We've got a great game on tap. It's been a fantastic day of college basketball and March Madness. Hummus Hero says Team USA is down 7-5 in the 8th, but base is low to nobody out. Easy Money says I channel serve home, especially basketball, but not so much when my Crimson Tide are playing. For sure. Texas up 69-65 on Penn State with 5 seconds left. It looks like Texas is going to hold on. Penn State gave the Longhorns all they could handle, but it looks like the Longhorns might hold on. That's a huge win for Texas. UCLA's up 43-39 on Northwestern, but Maryland up 11-8 on Alabama, but Alabama has the basketball. 15:45 to go in the first. Good ball movement early. Jaden Bradley kicks it to Brandon Miller. And Brandon Miller, he misses a 3. Dante Scott with the rebound for the Terps. He's bringing the ball down the floor. He's driving. And a foul. Alabama with a crucial foul there. Dante Scott. I don't think there's any free throws. It wasn't on a shot. But Maryland up 11-8, 15:26 to go in the first, and Maryland to inbound. Maryland's hanging tough early. They're playing some solid basketball, giving Alabama everything they can handle. The Terps had a good season in the Big Ten. Ian Martinez, he's driving and he gets stripped. Alabama's pushing the ball down the floor, and they almost turn it over, and they do. That's a travel. Alabama was running the floor, and they traveled. Hummus Hero says, sometimes I flip back and forth during commercials, even during Buckeye football, especially if it's close because of nerves. Sometimes you just got to change the game and hope when you're not looking, your team's doing something good. But Maryland, they're 4-6 from the field to start this game. Alabama's 2 for 6. The Terps with a 3-point lead. Hakeem Hardy's driving in. They call an offensive foul on Hakeem Hart. Nice charge by Noah Clowney. Noah Clowney's had a really good season for Alabama. A lot of the attention with the freshman has gone to Brandon Miller, but Noah Clowney's been a great freshman in his own right for the Crimson Tide. Could be a possible first-round draft pick. I'm not 100% sure if he will be drafted in the first round, but he's had a pretty good solid season. But Alabama's still down 3, trying to find their way, get their offense going. But Alabama, Noah Gurley, he misses a 3. But Alabama with the putback, it's 11-10. The Crimson Tide are hanging tough on the block, getting some putbacks on the glass. But Maryland with the ball now. Jameer Young, he is lightning fast when he's going downhill. And he kicks it down low to Patrick Emilion, but Alabama with the block. Some high-level action early. But it definitely looks like Texas, they held on over Penn State. What a win for the Longhorns. 71-66. Penn State gave the Longhorns everything they can handle, but Texas holds on. They're going to the Sweet 16. But Patrick Emilian, he's actually going to the free throw line. Alabama did foul him, and he misses the first. Maryland does have some players that do struggle at the free throw line. They were not the best foul shooting team in the Big Ten. Patrick Emilian, he does hit the second. Jameer Young's a good free throw shooter, but some of the bigs for Maryland, like Julian Reese, Patrick Emilian, not that great at the foul line. But it's 12-10 Maryland early over Alabama, 14 to go in the first. Alabama trying to find some offense. Jaden Bradley, he's driving in. He kicked it to Brandon Millers, back to Jaden Bradley. He's driving in, takes contact, and he misses the shot, and Patrick Emilian with the rebound. Maryland holding their own early. 13:40 to go in the first. Jameer Young at the March Madness logo, being hounded by Brandon Miller. He kicks to Dante Scott. Back to Jameer Young. Trying to find some space. He kicks to Don Carey. It was a great pass, but Don Carey mishandled the basketball. And Dante Scott's to shoot a deep three, and he airballs it. Easy Money says Maryland's going to lose by double digits. I'm not about to lose to a tortoise. Dave Valensky says Penn State just had trouble shooting threes, finally got tired out. That's the problem with Penn State. I was wondering if they could go far. The only way they could go far is if every single game they shot well from three, and they just could not do it. But I think overall, you look at Penn State, they were a team that had the potential to go to the Elite Eight or the Final Four, but they had to have consecutive games shooting well from three. And they just did not hit enough of them against Texas. Noah Gurley in the corner for Alabama. He misses a three. Ian Martinez with the rebound. He's going down the floor. Ian Martinez is the transfer from Utah. But Maryland's definitely cooled off, but still with a 2-point lead over Alabama. 12:50 to go in the first. Ian Martinez, he's driving in. He misses a floater. Maryland misses the putback attempt. Alabama's pushing the ball down the floor. 12:40 to go in the first. They're still down 2. Alabama trying to get some easy offense, and they miss another layup. Maryland with the rebound. Alabama's missing some relatively easy shots. I think Maryland's doing a good job on the defensive side of the ball to make the shots tougher. But Alabama has missed some shots they can make. Maryland swings it to Don Carey in the corner. Don Carey's trying to drive. And it's off of Alabama. So it's still Maryland basketball. Thomas here says, yep, Penn State lives and dies by the three. And yeah, that's all fine and dandy. But once you stop making them, then you're not going to be able to win. Hummus Hero says Team USA has a grand slam. They're up 9-7 now. Dave Valensky says, how's that a charge? His feet were moving. A lot of times in college basketball, the block charge call is so debated every single time. Refs have a hard time getting it right all the time. But you've got UCLA and Northwestern now tied all up at 45. Very interesting there. But Alabama down 2. Maryland staying ahead of them. And they call a tie. Tie ball, possession arrow to Maryland. Maryland is really scrapping early. Edwards sound nice on text. What's the score of this game? I'm watching the Celtics game. It's 12-10. Terps over the Crimson Tide. 11:55 to go in the first. Easy Money says, come on, Bama, focus. Edwards said UCLA only up 2 also. Yeah, now it's a tie game. Northwestern's come all the way back. Easy Money says this is looking like one of those second half games before Bama gets going, then the Sleeping Giant gets woke up. Yeah, it could be, but you definitely don't want to let the other team hang around too long, or worse yet, get a big lead and then you have to come back. It's one of those things where you just want to take the lead, hold on to it, and run away. Dave Valensky says Northwestern, UCLA are top 45-45. That would be a massive upset if Northwestern could beat UCLA. The Bruins are a really good team. They've had a lot of success in the Pac-12 this year, but Jalen Clark's injury is huge. Bona, that's a tough loss as well, but he's back in this game. But down the stretch of the season, he missed a few games, but he's definitely not looking like the player that he was before his injury. He's had a few good moments in the game against Northwestern, but Northwestern really wasn't shooting the ball well in the first half, and they're starting to get it going. Easy Money says, I haven't seen Northwestern yet, but I hear they're legit. They might be underrated. I don't know. I think Northwestern's a good team. I watched them a lot of the year in the Big Ten. They had some good games. They've had some good moments. Salvador Chavez says, hi, my friend. Thanks for being here, Salvador. We got a big game on tap here. Alabama, Maryland. It's a low-scoring game early. Was expecting more offense, but it's 12-10 Terps over the Crimson Tide. Alabama's trying to find their way, but they're just a little sloppy early. I think overall, if you look at the Crimson Tide, as Easy Money's pointed out, they have been a second-half team a lot this year. They've had some bad first halves, and then in the second half, they just steamroll the other team. But again, with March Madness, a single elimination tournament, one bad game you lose. You do not want to let the other team hang around. Hummus Hero says UCLA and Northwestern, a future conference rivalry being born tonight. That's going to be really interesting when you have USC and UCLA in the Big Ten. Who's going to be the rivals? Like, I know you're still going to have USC, UCLA, obviously, but once they're in the Big Ten, I mean, is UCLA, Indiana going to be a rivalry since they're like the blue bloods in the Big Ten? I mean, that's just going to be really interesting to find out. FYF Sports Debates, thanks for being here. He says NIL deals have even the landscape in college basketball. Not surprised these lower seeds are dominating. I agree. A lot of players are transferring to these smaller programs. You look at, some of these players, that like Drew Pember, right? Even though UNC Asheville did not beat UCLA, he was a guy that transferred from Tennessee to UNC Asheville, and he was a 6'11", 4-star center, had a lot of talent, and he goes to UNC Asheville, and he plays fantastic. I think that overall, a lot of these smaller teams are getting transfers from bigger programs. That's definitely helping. Edward says, who's left from the Big Ten? You've got Maryland, Northwestern, Michigan State, and Indiana. Indiana's still out there. They got Miami tomorrow. It should be a really good game. Should be a really good game between Indiana and Miami. Whoever wins that game will play Houston. And Houston, I thought they looked pretty good today, but overall, Houston was playing Auburn, and Auburn couldn't make free throws. If Auburn had to hit their free throws, that game could have gone down to the wire. But thanks so much for being here, everybody. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. But thanks so much, everyone, for being here. But we got a massive game. Maryland and Alabama, 12-10 Terps. 11:45 to go in the first half. Can Maryland hold on to their 2-point lead? Both teams are struggling from the field. They're only 1 of 13 from the field combined, both teams, in the last 5 minutes. Julian Reese on the left block. He turns right shoulder, then left shoulder, and it rolls off the rim. Alabama with the rebound. Javon Quinterly, he still got speed after his ACL tear last year. He's driving in the paint, and he misses a shot. Maryland with the board. Alabama's had some good looks. They're just not knocking them down. They've had some good looks, though. But Maryland, trying to find some offense as well. They've definitely gone cold, but still clinging to that 2-point lead. Dante Scott on the left block. He's being hounded by Javon Quinterly. Scott goes up, but he gets it stripped, and Alabama has the ball. But Alabama almost turned it over, but it is deflected off the Terps. Easy Money says Hoosiers play the Miami Ducks tomorrow. That should be a great game. I'm really looking forward to that one. I think that game could be a down-to-the-wire game. Could go either way. But I'm definitely looking forward to that. Edward says Ducks laughing on it's an abyss, just so you know. A lot of people question the mascot of Miami, of what it is, but it definitely is a type of duck, I think. Type of bird anyway. An abyss. People don't really know what it looks like. But both teams scrapping for the basketball. Alabama trying to inbound Maryland. It looked like they had it, almost went out of bounds, but the Terps do save it. They have the basketball up to 10:40 to go in the first. Maryland is playing some solid basketball on defense, but they cannot get any offense going. They're still up 2. And they call a foul on Alabama. Michael Williams, thanks for being here. He says, looks like this is the tournament of upsets this year, so come on, Maryland. I want to see all the big boys go down. Well, again, a lot of people said, coming in that this was a tournament of parity. Nobody really stood out as the best team, and that's why a lot of upsets, I think, are happening. Just no team's really dominant, the runaway favorite. It's definitely making for a lot of March Madness for sure. Dante Scott now on the right block. He turns shoulder and he misses another shot. Brandon Miller with the board. Both teams have not scored in almost 4 minutes of action. But Brandon Miller, he turns the basketball over. Maryland picks it up. Jameer Young's bringing it back down the floor for the Terps. There is no offense in this game. 10 minutes to go in the first. Dante Scott, he swings it over to Hakeem Hart, who's had a solid season for Maryland. He shoots a three, and he misses. But Maryland taps it back out. Jameer Young with the basketball. The Terps are scrapping. If they could start scoring, they could get ahead in this game, but they're not hitting anything. Ian Martinez, he's driving now. Passes it to Patrick Emilion. He almost loses it. And Charles Bediako with the steal. Mark Sears is going down the floor. Both teams are running the floor. Mark Sears drives the Ohio transfer to Charles Bediako for the slam, and it's 12-12. Finally, some points. Easy money said, come on, Bama, quit messing around. Excuse my Fresh Jeffrey hoops. It's all right. I can definitely understand your frustration. Both teams are struggling. Easy Money says Miami's mascot is a dollar store duck. Oregon Duck, that mascot's awesome. But they call another foul in Alabama. FYF Sports Debates says, oddly enough, I truly believe Princeton can win it all much better than anyone gives them credit for. Well, I mean, the way March is going, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. The way it's going right now, you just have no idea who's going to play well night in and night out. So many teams are beatable. Dave Valensky says, when does the game is going to feel like it's going to be a 12-10 final? I don't know the way it's going. I mean, now it's 12-12, but I do think both teams are going to start getting it figured out on the offensive end. Jameer Young, he scores on a floater. It's 14-12. Inside the Palms says, hey, y'all, I'm back. Hummus Hero says, the Abyss is supposed to be the first bird to take shelter before and return after a hurricane. I think that's the myth. That's interesting. Trip Pugh, thanks for being here, Trip. He says, hi, how you doing tonight? Thanks for being here, man. Got a high-level game, though, between Maryland and Alabama. This should be a good one. I just think that the offense is slow to come. But both these teams had some good offensive performances throughout the season, especially Alabama. They were a fantastic offensive team at times, especially with Brandon Miller, Mark Sears. You feel like the offense is going to come, but they've called 3 fouls on Julian Reese. That is huge for Maryland. Their best post player with 3 fouls, and Brandon Miller's at the line. That could definitely start to swing the momentum back Alabama's way. Helmus here says so many good sports on this weekend. For sure, this is one of the best times of the year. You've got spring football. You've got March Madness baseball getting back in swing. Inside the Ponds, and I can't believe Penn State lost to Texas. I'm not surprised. You just had to have a bad shooting night from 3 from them, and they did not shoot as well as they normally do from 3. And they couldn't win. Live and die by the 3. But it's 14-13. Brandon Miller, he split some free throws in Maryland. They have the basketball back, clinging to a 1-point lead. Brandon Miller, he doesn't look like his normal self, only with 3 points, 0-3 from the field. Dante Scott with a long 2. He misses yet another shot, and Alabama with the rebound. Mark Sears going down the floor. 8:20 to go in the first. Mark Sears tries to get it to Bediako down low, and Bediako, he travels. He travels with the ball before he went up with the shot. He shuffled his feet. Maryland basketball. Michael Williams says Brandon Miller's not the same player since he's been going through his troubles. Well, after, the situation with the campus shooting, and again, rest in peace to, everyone involved there, and especially with Michigan State shootings as well. It's just been awful with campus shootings. But Brandon Miller had a couple of really good games, but he's been going through some injuries right now, and that's been tough. Easy Money says, Michael, yeah, I know he also has a groin injury and he's had threats on him. It's just really tough, but I do think the groin injury is probably more of the problem. I mean, maybe the threats as well. It's a very unfortunate situation all around. But I will say overall, you look at the rest of the team, Alabama, their supporting cast did a really good job against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Obviously, that's different level competition, but they are struggling in this game. But Maryland's still up 14-13. Alabama with the basketball, 7:40 to go in the first. Alabama with a lot of talent on their team. They almost turned it over by stepping out of bounds, but they hung on in bounds. Mark Sears, 1 second on the shot clock. He shoots the ball, and he knocks it down. What? Cold ice in his veins. They're going to review it, but I think he got it off. It's 15-14 Alabama, 7:30 to go in the first. Inside the pile said, is Alabama a 1 seed that makes it to the Sweet 16? Well, if they win this game, that's definitely where they will be going. But you would think some 1 seed has to go. I mean, you wouldn't think that every single 1 seed is going to lose. But, I mean, overall, the way Maryland's playing early, they have a chance to beat Alabama, but eventually they're going to have to make some shots. They're going to have to make some shots if they want to win. Inside the pylon says, my wallet was stolen, guys. I'm sorry, inside the pylons. Hopefully you can find your wallet. That's really unfortunate. Easy Money says, finally the lead at last. Alabama's up 15-14. They got the lead, but can they hold on to it and extend it? I think the way Maryland's playing, there's the potential for Alabama to extend this lead because Maryland's not making shots, but it will be interesting to see if this game's going back and forth. Dave Valensky says, I felt like this tournament was going to have a lot of upsets. Unfortunately, I picked the wrong upsets. Most people probably did. Sometimes upsets are too predictable. A lot of people picked Kent State to beat Indiana. That didn't happen. But then you had Princeton over Arizona. I think Furman over Virginia. That one was kind of predictable. I think a lot of people thought that would happen, especially with Virginia's offense just being awful this season. But I don't think no one really picked Princeton over Arizona. No one picked FDU over Purdue. A lot of people picked Purdue to lose in the second round, but not in the first. Inside the ponds, you're absolutely correct. We've had 2 1 seeds get eliminated. It's crazy. James Scott, thanks for being here, James Scott. He says, Indiana-Miami ought to be an interesting game. Miami came back on Drake being down by 14 with 5 minutes to go, and the Hurricanes finished down a 16-1 point run. And Isaiah Wong didn't even have a good game, and that's key. If you look at Miami, when you have one of your best players not have a good game and you still win, that's a really good sign. In Indiana, Trace Jackson-Davis had a fantastic game against Kent State. First player in NCAA tournament history since 1985 to have over 20 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, and 5 blocks. He was fantastic. Race Thompson at 20 points, so it should be a high-level game. Edward said, I hope they all get eliminated. That would be awesome. Trip Pugh says, he's not an Alabama fan. I don't think. Inside the pylon says, can you guys believe that Michigan lost to Vanderbilt 66-65? Vanderbilt's good. I mean, some people thought they should have made the tournament, but they did lose too many games early in the season. But overall, Vanderbilt, what Jerry Stackhouse has done is amazing. Edward says Vandy is a good team. Jerry Stackhouse is an underrated coach, for sure. Hummus here says, I love March Madness, but truth is, in a single elimination tournament, the best team only wins maybe half the time. NBA, the best team nearly always does. 100% correct, Hummus here. That's what makes March Madness unique, because when you're playing 7 games, to your point, you can have a bad game. But if you lose a game, it doesn't matter, because as long as you win the other games and you win at least 4 of the 7 games, you're moving on to the next round. And to your point, most of the time, the best team wins. But when you're playing in a single elimination tournament, the better team can have a bad game. And you could look at it, you could say Purdue would beat Fairleigh Dickinson 99 out of 100. Well, it just so happened the 100th happened. I just think overall that's the biggest key when you look at March Madness, is what makes it so fun and unpredictable, because you only get one chance. Inside the pylon says Northwestern trails UCLA by 3. That's a really close game. It's 53-50 UCLA with 6:30 to go. That game's going down to the wire. But in this one, we've got a 15-14 lead. Alabama over Maryland, 7:20 to go in the first. Terps are playing well on the defensive side of the ball against Alabama, but cannot make shots. But Alabama just took the lead. Can the Terps get it back on this possession? Jameer Young swings it to Dante Scott. He's on the left block. He's struggling early in this game. Alabama's hounding him. He kicks it out. Hakeem Hart's going to have to shoot it with 3 seconds on the shot clock. He drives in, and Hakeem Hart for 2. Maryland back up by 1. 16-15. That was a really good drive from Hakeem Hart. He's having his best season in a Terps uniform. Brandon Miller driving in. That's a good play from Brandon Miller. That looks like old Brandon Miller. 17-16 Alabama. 6:30 to go in the first. But Dante Scott with the ball at the top of the key, he swings it to Patrick Emilion. Now back to Jameer Young. I think Maryland needs to get Jameer Young in more pick and roll scenarios. Right now, it's a lot of isolation ball for the Terps, which is not going to win them this game. But Dante Scott, he's driving in. He almost loses it. They might have called a foul on Alabama. Inside the pile and ask, can Alabama find and create separation to pull away from Maryland? It's yet to be seen. But I think with the talent Alabama has, they definitely can pull away. Edwards says March Madness about who is the best team on that day, who shows up and who shows out. For sure. You have to play good every single game. And that's why the teams that live and die by the three, to me, never go far. That's why when people pick a Penn State or Iowa in most years to go far, I question it, because it's like one bad game from three and you lose. The only team I've seen that shot a ridiculous percentage and amount from three that made it all the way to the Final Four was Auburn in 2019. Auburn hit over 15 threes in every tournament game they played, and then they lost to Virginia in the Final Four on a play that was questionable, and the ball went off Ty Jerome's foot. But that year, Auburn was shooting lights out. They beat Carolina. They beat Kentucky. They beat all these teams in the tournament. But most of the time, you just don't shoot that well from three, game in and game out. Charles Bediako for two for Alabama. It's 19-17 Crimson Tide over the Terps. 5:50 to go in the first. But Alabama's starting to settle in a little bit. The offense is still struggling a bit for both teams. But Alabama leaves Hakeem Hart open for three, and Hakeem Hart, he misses. So Alabama with a chance to go up by 2 possessions. Brandon Miller swings it to Charles Bediako, out to Mark Sears. And Mark Sears, he thought about the step back three, but he passed it to Brandon Miller. And Brandon Miller, he drives with a wild shot, and he misses. Dante Scott with the rebound. Not a really good shot by Brandon Miller. That was a tough attempt. But Maryland down 2, 5 to go in the first. Can the Terps find a way to tie or take the lead back? But they turn the basketball over. Very sloppy play there. Alabama pushing it. And Maryland steals it back. Both teams are sloppy down the floor, making bad passes. Jameer Young, he drives. He takes a short two, and he misses. Mark Sears with the rebound. Frantic play from both teams, but not a lot of scoring. UCLA is now up 6 on Northwestern, 57-51, 4 to go. But Alabama with a 2-point lead, 4 to go in the first. Brandon Miller driving in on Jameer Young, and he makes the floater. 21-17, Alabama now up by 4. Brandon Miller starting to get going. He looks a lot better tonight. And Maryland takes a timeout. Easy Money says, like I said, Bama's going to win by double digits. Wait till second half. I've seen this movie. Inside the Pylons, he said, with Duke losing to Tennessee today, does FAU or FDU have a better chance of making it to the Elite Eight, or does Tennessee give either the same prize as Duke, so neither stand a chance? I don't know. That's a really good question. I think overall, if you look at Tennessee, if they play as hard as they did on defense in the Duke game against FAU or FDU, they will win. Because it's all about effort. Tennessee gave effort. They destroyed the narrative that they couldn't go to the Sweet 16. I think overall that's how Tennessee's going to have to win. But if they don't play as hard on defense and they can't make shots, and I could see especially FAU winning, Florida Atlantic, but Fairleigh Dickinson could get the win as well if they somehow beat Florida Atlantic, because they're a really scrappy team. It's how they beat Purdue. They out-hustled them. Inside the policy, can we see Princeton and FDU, FAU in the Elite Eight? It's not impossible. Anything is possible. But those teams are definitely going to have to play well game in and game out. Easy Money says Miller is waking up. It's almost like he's a sleeping giant. He's definitely a sleeping giant for sure. 0 points in his last game, but he is playing better basketball in this one for sure. And if he continues to play at a high level, then Alabama should easily get this win, especially if his teammates are playing well too. But I think Maryland, they are cold on offense right now. They're going to have to settle in. You don't want to fall too far behind. Because if Alabama starts making some threes along with the drives that they're getting to the rim, then the Terps are really going to fall behind in this one. They're not going to have a chance. But I think it has been a high-level first half. Both teams are playing really hard. But Alabama definitely looks like the more talented team. I think the Crimson Tide are doing a really good job on Dante Scott. For the Terps, Dante Scott, They're not giving him easy looks at all. They're making him do everything he can to try to drive one-on-one, and that's really creating a lot of tough issues for him on offense. I think that Maryland needs to run some more pick and roll action. I know it's a lot tougher to do without Julian Reese in the game, but they'll have to find a way to do that with Patrick Emilion to free up Jameer Young, but it will be interesting to see what the Terps try to do to stay in this game. Easy Money says Tennessee has played good games. They made a regular season run and started losing up and down good defense. Well, for sure, and again, to everyone's point, you have to play well game in and game out in the tournament, so if Tennessee just plays well again, they could win. Jonathan Hurst, thanks for being here, Jonathan. He says Bama, Natty incoming. Alabama could win the whole thing. If they play well game in and game out, they could win the whole thing because the talent's there. Nate Oates at head coach, the coaching is there. There's nothing really wrong with Alabama's team, but it's about being consistently good game in and game out. If they have one bad game, they could get beat like everyone else. Inside the Pylon said, did anyone else find it hilarious how Barkley jinxed Auburn at halftime of the Penn State-Texas game? Well, for sure, Auburn definitely fell apart in the second half, and they could not make a free throw to save their life. If they had hit some free throws, they would have won. They couldn't make free throws. Houston hit all theirs, and Auburn missed almost half of their free throws. Easy Money said Jonathan right on, roll Tide, roll. Edwards says Bama's not winning a natty, that's for sure. He's not a believer in the Crimson Tide. But we'll have to wait and see. The Crimson Tide have to get by the Terps in this one. But Alabama with a 21-17 lead, 4:19 to go. Jameer Young with the basketball. He's been quiet so far in this game. I think the length of Alabama's been getting to him. But he takes almost a tough two, but he decides to pass to Patrick Emilion, who kicks it back out to Don Carey. But there's only 5 seconds on the shot clock. Jameer Young having to drive. He turns shoulder, and he misses a shot. It was a pretty good look, but he missed. Alabama in the corner for 3, and they get fouled. Maryland, they call a foul on the Terps on a 3. You never want to do that. You don't want to give free points up. But it's 21-17 Alabama, 3:51 to go in the first half. Thanks for being here, everybody. We got a great stream going on. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream out on social media, but thank you guys so much for being here. A lot of people are excited about this game. Jonathan Hurst says Auburn only hit 4 field goals in the second half. Yeah, that was awful. They had a bad second half. They couldn't make any shots. They couldn't make any free throws. It's terrible. Dave Valensky says in 1989, Big Ten, probably the best tournament ever for the conference. Iowa, Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana made the tournament. Yeah, and that was back in Indiana's heyday. Easy Money, he says, Edward, you better not bet your house on that because my Crimson Tide is winning the championship. Jeff is here. Thanks for being here, Jeff. He says, great stream and great game. Go Bama. Edward says, no, they won't. Brandon Miller is hurt and is inconsistent from 3. They have 0 consistent offense. Again, that is the issue. When they are shooting the lights out from the three-point line, they are dangerous. They are one of the best teams in college basketball. But like every other team, when the threes are not falling, they struggle. They look like a completely different basketball team when the shots are not falling. And then Brandon Miller's driving out of control to the paint. And if you're not getting the foul calls, then Alabama could lose. I think Alabama's a great team. I think they have so much talent. But it is going to come down to the three-point shots. Like in this game right here, they're not actually shooting that well from the three-point line, but Maryland's not taking advantage of that. Maryland's had many chances to take advantage of Alabama's poor offense to take this lead and maybe start actually building a lead, but Maryland's not able to do that. Maryland is not shooting well either. So I don't know if Maryland is going to be the team that can give the Crimson Tide fits. I think it's going to take another team that's possibly better overall as a team. If Maryland can do that, I think Alabama could get upset. And Maryland, maybe if they can start making shots, maybe they could be the one that beats Alabama, but Maryland's just not making shots right now. The length and the physicality of Bama is really tough for Maryland. But to Edwards' point, I do think Bama can be beat. Every team can be beat. But Alabama can be beat. But you have to do the things that are necessary to beat Bama on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Make shots, rebound, defend. In Maryland, I don't know if they're doing enough of that. They are hanging in there, but I don't know if they're doing enough. Dave Valensky says everybody won in the first round. 4 of them went to the Sweet 16. 2 of those teams went to the Final Four, and Michigan won the championship. Yeah, that was a great year for the Big Ten. I mean, Indiana, like I said, was back in their heyday. That was before Indiana started to go downhill. Michigan was really good back then. The Big Ten was a great conference back then. And they still are. They just don't have the tournament success they used to have. Ross Hargetti says, Roll Tide, roll. Thanks for being here, Ross. Got a great game. Crimson Tide definitely playing well on the defensive side of the ball. Maryland's playing well on defense. Both teams struggling on the offensive end. But it has been a high-level game. UCLA up 59-56 on Northwestern, 2:23 to go. But if UCLA can keep making shots, they might hold on. Inside the Pylon says, what is the best game today? Arkansas over Kansas or Princeton over Missouri? I would have to go with Arkansas over Kansas. Yes, Princeton over Missouri, that's a big upset. It's always crazy to see a 15 seed go to the Sweet 16. But I will say that Arkansas went over Kansas. That was the best game of the day all around. Both teams were playing hard. Kansas played well, but Arkansas kept scrapping all around. That was a fantastic game. Easy Money says, Dave, they had 8 teams in like the SEC this season. A couple years ago, they had 9, I think, but most went out by the second round. Michigan made the Elite 8 and lost. I think the biggest problem for the Big Ten is the fact Indiana's been down for so long. Indiana's such a great program, and they've had such a great history, but they've been down for so long. And Michigan State has had so many good seasons under Tom Izzo, but they haven't been as good as lately. They haven't been going to the Final Fours as much recently. If Michigan State and Indiana could get back on track, that could really help out the Big Ten. Easy Money says Arkansas over Kansas, hands down. What a game. It was for sure. But Alabama, Namari Burnett, he hits all 3 free throws, and now Alabama's up 24-17. 3:40 to go in the first, and the Crimson Tide are on a 12-3 run in the last 5 minutes. Where's the offense going to come from for Maryland? They're really struggling on the offensive end. Alabama's length is giving them fits. Don Carey misses a 2. And Noah Clowney with the rebound for the Crimson Tide with a chance to extend the lead even further. Alabama's playing great defense. Brandon Miller's driving in the lane yet again, and he misses, but he taps his own miss back in. It's 26-17. Edwards said Maryland is not a great offensive team. Bama equal Penn State. Well, I definitely think Alabama's more talented than Penn State. But to your point, Edward, Maryland is really struggling on the offensive end. And that is definitely a big reason why they're losing this game, because they have not scored in several minutes. They're lucky to only be down 9. But Dante Scott, he's trying to drive in, and he gets blocked from behind by Charles Bediako. 2 seconds to go on the shot clock. And Dante Scott, he misses yet again. But Maryland regains possession. Dante Scott saves it from going out of bounds. But Ian Martinez, he's driving this time. Patrick Emilion fumbles the ball. Back to Don Carey. Don Carey's driving. And Ian Martinez, he misses a layup. He had that shot, but he missed it. So it's still a 9-point lead for Alabama. 2:20 to go in the first. And the Crimson Tide could pull this thing out to double digits. Jeff says, welcome. Glad to be here. Go Bama. Thank you for being here so much. And Alabama is starting to push out this lead. Maryland is really struggling on offense. Javon Quinterly's driving in. He kicks it out to Noah Clowney. And Noah Clowney does miss a 3, but they call an over and back foul on Charles Bediako. He definitely went over and back. Easy Money says Bama's way better all around than Penn State. For sure, they definitely are. Even though Alabama is a team that does rely a lot on the three-point line, they are a way more talented team than Penn State. Edward says, no, they aren't. You're just a Bama fan. That's the only difference. James Scotty says, well, if UCLA advances, at least they won't have to worry about facing Zona. Laughing out loud. Well, yeah, they definitely lost for sure to Princeton. That was a big upset. But UCLA up 62-50 on Northwestern, 45 seconds left. But Patrick Emilion at the line for Maryland, and he misses a 1-and-1. The Terps desperately needed points, and they do not get any. Missing the free throws. And Alabama bringing the ball off the floor in complete control of this game. Brandon Miller at the top of the key. He's driving in yet again where he is lethal. He's on Jameer Young. Kicks out to Javon Quinterly, and Javon Quinterly misses a 3. Maryland tracks the ball down. Jameer Young down the floor, and he is fouled. Inside the Pylons asked, with UMBC and FDU beating 1s, is the door now finally open to us seeing 16s over 1s being a regularity? I don't know about that, but I do think overall it gives these teams the belief they can do it. So I do think it is possible that you'll see it every now and then, but I wouldn't say it's going to happen all the time, though. It will be interesting to see. That is a great question. Easy Money says 2 years ago we lived and died by the three, but we're better everywhere now. And when we do get hot on the threes, nobody can beat us. Well, I think basically to Edwards' point is that when Alabama's not making their threes, they are beatable. I think that's the key. They're not a team that can just win by being, physical and getting shots inside. But I think no team's that good. I think all teams today have to rely on the three-point line to some extent. Because you look at a team like Indiana, they don't shoot a lot of threes. And they get a lot of points inside with Trace Jackson Davis. But sometimes if they're not hitting enough threes, they don't win either. Dave Valensky says, I totally agree. Indiana, Michigan State, Michigan are the jewels in college basketball in the Big Ten. When any of those teams have a down year, the Big Ten is going to struggle in the tournament, especially Indiana in the past. They just aren't the same team they used to be, but they're getting back there. Mike Woodson doing great things. But Brandon Miller got a couple fouls, but Alabama's still up 7. Maryland hit both free throws. Noah Gurley in the corner. Kicks to Namari Burnett. Alabama is passing the ball well, but only down to 2 seconds on the shot clock. Great defense by Maryland, and Maryland with the basketball. 1 minute to go, and it's 26-19. Easy Money says, Edward Penn State doesn't have the athletes like Bama. They can shoot threes, but nowhere close in athleticism and bench player. Exactly. I think Alabama is, again, a way more talented team than Penn State. Similar in style in the fact they shoot a lot of threes, but Alabama does have more talent. But Maryland trying to score. Hakeem Hart on the left block, kicks to Don Carey. He fakes. He's driving in. And Don Carey, he scores on a tough layup, and Maryland only down 5, 26-21, 39 seconds to go in the first. And Noah Clowney, a little shaken up. He goes to the bench. Clint Moses said, go Beefs. Thanks for being here, Clint. We got a great game between Alabama and Maryland, a high-level game, the last game of the night. UCLA up 64-60 on Northwestern. That game's about to go final. There's 23 seconds left. The Bruins might hold on. Easy Money says, Clint, I hear you laughing out loud. Cheers to Oregon State. Hopefully the Beavers can get back to being a good basketball team, get in the tournament or the NIT soon. But Alabama for 2. What a tough layup by Javon Quinterly. He was looking for an and-one. Doesn't get it. But it's 28-21 Alabama with 19 seconds to go in the first. Can Maryland score again to cut this lead? 10 seconds on the shot clock. Jameer Young trying to survey. Gets a ball screen from Patrick Emilion. Jameer Young's driving in, and he knocks down the floater. 28-23, and that is your halftime score. The Crimson tied up by 5. A low-scoring first half. But both teams did play well on defense. But the offense was coming and going, but Alabama started to pull away a bit, but Maryland hanging in there, only down 5. Edwards says talent doesn't mean the game plans of the team isn't the same, but for sure. I think I agree with both your points. I agree with Edward and I agree with Easy Money. I do agree with Easy Money that Alabama's more talented, but I do agree with Edward that both of the teams do play a similar style. Edward said if talent wins game, then the underdogs never win. Then if you look at FDU beating Purdue, which some people say Purdue's not a really talented team, I kind of agree with that overall. But still, smaller teams can win big games. Talent isn't always enough. You can have a bad shooting night. We got a high-level game. Thank you guys so much for being here, everyone that's watching. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream out on social media. We've got a great crowd tonight watching Alabama, Maryland. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. Easy Money says Bama is good in the paint and field goals too, as well as threes. They get sluggish sometimes, but solid everywhere. I think overall that's the point that a lot of people have with Alabama, though, is they're sluggish sometimes. You don't want to be sluggish. If you're not making shots, that's fine, but I think sometimes Alabama plays a little sloppy. And it's showed up a few times in this game already where they make a bad pass. They are a great team. They have great guards, but sometimes they just don't pass the ball well. Sometimes they make bad decisions. And it's just one of those things where you have to play consistent basketball at all times if you want to win games, game in and game out. Hummus Hero says since the Big Ten's last basketball national championship, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State have all made the national championship game and lost something like 14 Final Four appearances in total. Yeah, that's crazy. The Indiana, last time they made it was in 2002, and they lost to Maryland, which was in the ACC at the time. But yeah, besides that, Indiana hasn't gotten close. And a lot of those other teams, just have not been as good recently. I just think the Big Ten has been down as a conference overall, not in the fact they haven't been able to make the tournament, but it's more of the fact that they've just struggled overall getting deep in the tournament. It's great to be good in the regular season, but it's more important to be good in the tournament. Easy Money said, Edward, what did Penn State accomplish this season? Who's the number one overall seed? After you beat a team, Penn State couldn't use a little common sense. Well, I think if you look at Penn State, they did play 4 games in 4 days in the Big Ten championship game against Purdue. I think that if they hadn't been as tired, they maybe could have beat Purdue. But Penn State, they were exhausted. And Penn State is a team that definitely is not as talented. They rely way more on the three-point line than Alabama. I don't think they're direct comparisons, but still very similar teams. Edward says that's not a smart statement. I guess Bama didn't get humiliated by Oklahoma then, huh? Again, every team has a bad game. Grant Sherfield at 35 points. Grant Sherfield lit up Alabama. He had a fantastic game, the Nevada transfer. But you just look at teams. Sometimes you have a hot game from 3. It happens. That's why Alabama got beaten that game. Sometimes Alabama doesn't defend as well as they should either sometimes. But they are a good team. Dave Valensky says, my gosh, the UCLA player just broke his ankle, literally broke his ankle. Oh, I hope he's okay. I'm definitely not watching that game and watching Alabama, but I hope he's all right. 65-60 UCLA, though. But UCLA cannot afford any more injuries. They've suffered a lot of injuries this year. Clint Moses has smashed that like button. Y'all, thank you, Clint. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. But thank you guys so much for being here. We got a really good crowd tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hummus here, he says, Ohio State actually is tied with Michigan State for most Final Four appearances in any team in Big Ten history. With 10, Indiana's 8. They just have been most successful in making it there. That is true. You are right, Hummus here. But that's because of Bob Knight and Branch McCracken. When they made it, Indiana didn't lose, like you said, for sure. And I think if you do look at Indiana, they are a great program. But if you take out, those national championships, and if they lose a couple of those, Indiana does not have as much esteem as they normally, a lot of people would take them for. It's because when they got there, they won. Keith Smart's 3 over Syracuse. They only won by 1 point in that game. But I think overall, Indiana has had a lot of success as a program. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that they, when they made the national championship game, they won. But you're all right. Ohio State, Michigan State have definitely made more Final Four appearances for sure. Easy Money says, Edward G's occasionally underdog wins. If Bama played Penn State, which team do you think most people would bet on? Well, yeah, most people would bet Alabama. That doesn't mean Penn State couldn't win either. It's one of those things. That's where the phrase, how many times out of 10 would a team win? If Alabama played Penn State, Alabama probably would win 8 or 9 times out of 10. But Penn State could play Alabama in the tournament. Penn State could beat Alabama. That's why the NCAA tournament is so hard. To everyone's point, all it takes is one bad game and you lose. Edward says, betting mean nothing, buddy. Doesn't make you the winner. 100% agree as well. You have to play great. And what people bet on doesn't matter. I mean, I think most people bet Purdue to beat FDU, but they lost. I mean, it's not the way it works for sure. Inside the Pollen, as he said, with conference realignment of the championship affected, example is that Maryland's Natty went over I now count for the Big Ten. I don't really think that matters in hindsight. I mean, if it does count for the Big Ten now versus the ACC, but they did win it when they were in the ACC. And plus, it doesn't really matter anyway. I mean, you look at like UCLA going to the Big Ten, and now, the Big Ten's gaining all those championships from UCLA. Well, UCLA won all those when they were in the Pac-10 at the time, or maybe even the Pac-8 or Pacific, whatever they called it back in the 60s and 70s. But still, I think you look at it overall, that doesn't really matter. I mean, it's a great question, but in hindsight, it doesn't really matter. You're just gaining a proud program. I mean, if you want to be technical about it and they do count it to the new conference, then it does help the Big Ten with Maryland in it with their national championship win in UCLA, but I don't know if it matters too necessarily much. Easy Money says, Edward got me there. We played bad against OU. We didn't lose big games. We went on to win the SEC regular season and SEC tournament championship. Then was awarded the number 1 overall seed in the Big Dance. I was kind of surprised Alabama got the number 1 overall seed. I thought they'd give it to Kansas, especially considering the fact Kansas had all those quad 1 wins. But I do think if Kansas had to beat Texas, they probably would have given them the number 1 overall seed. UCLA is up 68-62 on Northwestern. Now 68-63, 7 seconds left, but it looks like the Bruins are going to win. Edwards said, I guess overall number 1 seed just wins every tournament. My bad, I didn't know that. That's not true for sure. I mean, you look at how many times the 1 seeds go down. It happens all the time. A lot of times the championship game isn't even 1 seeds. It sometimes are, but overall, the March Madness is very unpredictable these days. It's more unpredictable than it's ever been, I think, which I think makes March Madness great. I mean, March Madness is one of those things where it's so unique to college basketball. There is nothing like it in any other sport, which is why people love it so much. You don't have this in NFL. You don't have this in the NBA. You don't have this in college football. This is what makes college basketball so great, is that so many teams get the chance to win the same award at the end of the day. And if you win 6 games in a row and play great basketball, every team has that chance. It's awesome. Dave Valensky says Missouri probably thought they were going to dominate Princeton. Princeton, another plan, totally destroy Missouri. I wouldn't say that Missouri didn't play hard or try, or they thought they were going to dominate. I mean, you could be right, Dave. Could be 100% right. I wouldn't think they'd overlook them. But if they did, if that actually is the case, then that's not smart, because all Missouri has to do is look at FDU over Purdue. All they have to do is look at Princeton beating Arizona. I mean, does Missouri think they're a better team than Arizona? Probably not. So Missouri, if that's the case, Dave, if they did overlook Princeton and thought they'd dominate, that's not a smart move. You have to play hard game in and game out. You cannot slack up once. Easy Money says Bama owns Penn State in football. I bet you're one of those jealous of Bama's success. Here's being right. Sorry about your luck. Roll Tide roll. Well, I mean, Alabama football dominates almost every single team. Georgia's got their number right now for the last couple of years. Don't know how long it's going to last. But I will say overall, Alabama has dominated most teams in college football. And in college basketball, they're becoming a force. Probably a lot of people don't like that. It is what it is. Somebody's going to have to beat Alabama. I mean, basketball is different than football. When you're in football and you have most of the talent and you've got a great coach, you're going to win games. Because if you have the talent gap on the offensive line and the defensive line, the game's almost already over. Because smaller teams have skill position players, but they don't have the offensive and defensive linemen. But when you have basketball, you could be the more talented team. You could have the 5 stars and go down. Kentucky, St. Peter's, FDU, Purdue, Arizona, Princeton. Happens all the time. You could be the more talented team and have an awful shooting night, and the smaller school has a great shooting night. That's what makes college basketball different. Edward said, laughing out loud, I'm an unbiased basketball fan. I'm speaking fact. You're speaking from fandom. That's the difference. Man, yours, Edward, and Easy Money's debate is awesome. It is hilarious. And the thing is, both of you guys have, validity. I mean, I think to a point, Edward, you're absolutely correct. Easy Money as well. I mean, Edward is definitely correct in the fact that Alabama plays similar to Penn State. Alabama's beatable. I think that's the biggest thing he's getting at. Alabama is a beatable basketball team. They have flaws like every other team. They are not unbeatable. And if they have one bad game, they could lose. But to Easy Money's point, Alabama's a really talented team. And if they play well game in and game out, they could go all the way. But again, first things first, got to get by the Terps. Can't overlook any opponent. Cannot overlook any opponent. But UCLA, they hold on over Northwestern 68-63. And the Bruins, they are now in the Sweet 16. The only team from the Pac-12 still in the NCAA tournament. Big news for the Pac-12. They need a team to have success. And they've got the Bruins in the Sweet 16. Easy Money says, Edward, you're trying to say Penn State equal to Bama, so I'll point out a confidence because that's the only scale we have. I don't think Edward is saying necessarily that Alabama equals Penn State, even if he might have worded it that way. I just think overall they have a similar style, is his point, because clearly Alabama's a better basketball team than Penn State. That is 100% fact. But Alabama's style of play could get them beat. We have a great crowd tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here. We got a big game. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream out on social media. But thank you guys so much for being here. Alabama up 28-23 at the half over Maryland. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the second half. Can Maryland find a way to take back the lead and get the win over the Crimson Tide? Will Alabama dominate in the second and get the win? Dave Valensky says Alabama could probably win 5 games in the NFL. That's how dominant they have been. I think Alabama and Georgia could win games in the NFL. The way both those two teams are right now, especially Alabama, if you go back a couple years ago, they definitely could win a game or two in the NFL, probably several, especially against the worst teams. And both would dominate the XFL or the USFL. They would just dominate. I think they would probably be the best team by far. Edwards said the only teams I hate is South Carolina and NC State, but is you're a Justin Bama fan that thinks your team is invincible. Well, I mean, it's your rivals for sure with those two teams, but I mean, I don't know if he thinks his team is invincible, but he definitely is a very confident fan right now, and he should be. Alabama's a great team, but for sure they are a beatable team. Edwards says, no, I'm saying Bama equal Penn State because y'all are the same team. Y'all rely on Miller to get to the paint, get fouled, and shoot threes. That's the same thing for Penn State. Well, I mean, Jalen Pickett drives in for Penn State. He gets in the post, and you look at Brandon Miller does the same thing. But Brandon Miller is a 6'9", freshman stud that's comparable to Kevin Durant. That's driving in and shooting over everybody and getting fouled and shooting threes. Jalen Pickett's a 6'4" guard that transferred from Siena. Not the same thing, for sure. Brandon Miller is so talented. He is a fantastic player. James Scott, he says, so long as you have a quarterback who's good at protecting the football, but if he's prone to erratic throws, you see the offense throw despite the play of the O-line. You all right, James Scott. I agree. But I'm just saying, if you have a good defensive line and a good offensive line, it makes it so tough for the smaller school to win. That's why you see Alabama football play the Citadel and it's 60-0. But then you see Alabama basketball play Oklahoma basketball, even though Oklahoma was not the Citadel. But even using Fairleigh Dickinson and Purdue, the smaller team can win because the talent gap is not as important as it is in football. When you dominate the lines of scrimmage in football, it is almost impossible to lose. Easy Money said, geez, Edward, you brought it up. I figured you to be a jealous Bama hater for fast. You can't deny Bama's success, especially in football. No one can deny their success in football. That's undeniable. Hummus here said the Pac losing UCLA is really going to hurt the prestige of the conference for basketball. 100%. All they're going to have left now is Arizona and a little bit of Oregon. And someone else would probably point out some other teams that have had some success way back in the past. But the Pac-12 is losing so much in basketball with UCLA gone. They are definitely the main focus of college basketball in that conference. Edward said in football, we're talking about basketball. What is the point of football in this conversation? Well, I mean, that's just for, Easy Money's point of saying Alabama's been dominant in both sports for sure, and they have been. Jeff said it's a fantastic game. Alabama will roll, and I agree on Georgia and Alabama. Easy Money says, are you a Clemson fan, Edward? He is definitely a Clemson fan. Inside the Pollen said, does anyone else like going back and watching old tournament games? Oh, I love to watch old tournament games. I mean, the history, watching the old coaches and the old players and big moments is crazy. Even if the footage is horrible. The nostalgia, even for a time that, some of us younger fans did not watch. It is so cool to watch, though. It's amazing. Edward said, what does that matter who I root for? Man, Edward and Easy Money are just going at it. This is awesome. Inside the Pollen said, March Madness is one of my favorite times of the year. If you're a basketball fan, particularly college basketball, then March Madness is just fantastic. And some people don't even, like college basketball that much, but still watch March Madness just for the chaos. It is awesome. Hummus Hero says, no, guys, the most dominant college team would still get handled by the worst NFL teams. They could hang for a quarter, maybe a half, but the physicality of NFL teams would end up overwhelmingly. I mean, Hummus Hero is probably right, but I could see Georgia or Alabama potentially winning a game or two. I could see it. I mean, if you're playing like some of the worst NFL teams of all time that went 0-16 back in the past, and you have Georgia or Alabama playing, they're out of 10 games, they'd win at least a few of those. They'd find a way to win at least one or two. Maybe they wouldn't win multiple games in the NFL season, but they'd win at least one or two. But I do agree with you, Hummus Hero. The NFL teams are better for sure. Jeff says, hey, Easy Money, this is the game we've been waiting for. Roll Tide for sure, for sure. Alabama with a win could get to the Sweet 16. Nate Oates is trying to build up the Alabama basketball program, maybe make them a dynasty like the football team. Inside the Pile said, I'm about to put on my copy of UMBC Virginia 2018 if I can find it. That second half of that game was insane. Just watching Virginia, especially with their style of play, how they slow the game down and they have to be winning, for their style of play to work. Because once they fall behind, then they completely panic. And they were just panicking. Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome, they were missing easy layups because they were panicking. I almost felt bad for Virginia. It's just one of those things where their style of play, they have to be winning for it to work. But when you fall behind, you have to start playing faster if you want to come back. Easy Money says, Edward, you don't like South Carolina. NC State's a pretty good indication of a Clemson fan. It would explain why you're jealous of Bama. You guys are funny. You guys are really funny. Hummus Zero said, I used to watch ESPN Classic quite a bit when at the time classic sports are awesome. It's awesome when they re-air older games. James Scott said, I mean, this is only talk sports and not only talk basketball. Well, I mean, technically we are doing a basketball stream. I am only talk sports, but this technically is a basketball stream. You guys, you can talk about football if you want. I love it. The banter is awesome. Ever said Brock and careless about Bama. I hate to tell you, I don't lose any sleep over Bama at all. Easy Money said kids like Auburn and base because they don't beat nobody. Well, I mean, yeah, Auburn's struggling right now in football. They're really struggling in football, and in basketball, they have definitely had a lot of struggles as well last couple years. I mean, Bruce Pearl had the Tigers playing great basketball for a while, but they are struggling a bit right now. But still, overall, I think Bruce Pearl is a really good coach and has done some good things with the basketball program. But Auburn football's got to get back on track, especially now that Oklahoma and Texas are joining the SEC. Auburn could really fall behind if they don't get things turned around. They're a great program. They have great fans. They have a lot of good facilities, but they're struggling. Edward said, sorry, Jane, we were having a basketball conversation. He just randomly throws basketball in the conversation. So what does football have anything to do with basketball? Well, I mean, overall, I mean, like you said, Edward, Easy Money was using the football dominance of Alabama, you know, to talk about Alabama's dominance in basketball as well. But again, I don't mind, man. It's funny. But I mean, again, this basketball game, though, is definitely showing that Alabama can be beat because they're only up 28-23. And if Maryland was having a really good game on offense, they could be winning this game. But they only have 23 points. Dave Valensky says it's hard to build a dynasty in college basketball. Most players that go to big schools only stay for 1 or 2 years. 100% correct. You are absolutely right, Dave. I think if you look at one and dones, like at the Kentuckys and the Dukes, they make it really tough for those programs because they leave. They don't stay. And then you have programs like Villanova when Jay Wright was the head coach having the 4-year players. They have so much experience. They're ready for anything, and they're able to get wins. But in football, when you have a lot of talent and you have the great coaches, they win almost all the time, like Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. But in basketball, it's definitely a lot different. You have the 4-year players, a lot of the experience on the teams, and then you have the one and dones, and it meshes up, and it makes for a lot of interesting matchups. And a lot of times, the older players win out. Easy Money says, Dave, yeah, it'll probably get harder more so with NIL. I think that it's definitely making a lot more teams good, which is good for parity. And then with the transfer portal, if a player's not getting any playing time, he can go to a smaller school and have a lot of success as well. James Scott says, well, he had already answered, but there you go twice. Inside the Pollen says, Dave Lindsay, well, that's not completely true. Like the Donalds from Duke and UNC under Coach K and Roy Williams. I think those are the two schools that prove otherwise, but for the most part, yes. I do agree with North Carolina because they did have a lot of 4-year players. Roy Williams, he had a couple one and dones, but it wasn't like their whole roster was, though. So they kind of fit under the Jay Wright Villanova. North Carolina had Marcus Page, Joel Berry. They had all those older guys. And you look at Duke, for the longest time, Coach K had a lot of older guys. But then once Kyrie Irving came in 2011, they switched it up to more of the one and done style. But still, it is kind of interesting to think that they technically kind of had dynasties. But I think that it is a lot tougher to have a college basketball dynasty than college football for that reason. Thanks for being here, everybody. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream out on social media. But thanks to everyone for being here. You've got Alabama and Maryland. The second half is about to start. The Crimson Tide have a 5-point lead. It's 28-23. The offense was a struggle bus for both teams. There was a lot of clanking of the rim, not a lot of shots going down, but Alabama started to settle in a little bit in the later part of that first half. Brandon Miller started to get some points. He was starting to settle down. And I think that Maryland, they definitely struggled on the offensive end. But Maryland did have some success on the defensive side of the ball, giving Alabama some fits, but they did struggle on offense. But the second half is just starting. Alabama with the ball first. Javon Quinterly, he hit some big shots, and he drives in. No resistance from the Terps. 30-23, right to the rack. And Maryland now down 7, 19:40 to go in the second half. Jameer Young, he had a rough first half for the Terps. He definitely struggled with the length of Alabama. Julian Reese on the low block, and he misses a 2. Alabama with the rebound. Brandon Miller's taking the ball down the floor. And you've got Mark Sears in the corner. He misses a 3. That could have been a big shot. That could have been a big shot for Alabama to extend the lead to 10. But Maryland, only down 7, still in this game. Jameer Young driving to the rack. He kicks it out to Dante Scott. 10 to go on the shot clock. Now to Julian Reese. He kicks to Don Carey, and Don Carey gets fouled. Inside the pylon says, did Barkley cry on air after Auburn loss? He was probably upset. James Scott's laughing. You say that even after he's been putting my comments on the screen since mid-first half. Hey, well, I mean, I like to read your guys' comments. You guys are awesome. I thank you guys so much for being here. Jeff's this nice start for Bama. Definitely. Don Carey at the foul line for the Terps. He's got 5 points in this game. Trying to cut into the Bama lead. And he hits the first. Chris Glazer, thanks for being here. He says, finally, Reese is back. That will help out Maryland on the block, but he cannot pick up his 4th foul. He has 3 fouls right now. And Don Carey with another free throw. He looks cool, calm, and collected. And he misses the second free throw. So still a 6-point game, 2-possession game. Javon Quinterly with the basketball. Alabama gets it to Brandon Miller. He has a wide open 3, and Brandon Miller knocks down the 3. There's the Kevin Durant comp right there. With the fact he can shoot 3s and drive to the basket. But Brandon Miller extends Alabama's lead to 9. 33-24, 18:30 to go in the second. Jameer Young with the basketball. He's still struggling in this game. He swings to Don Carey in the corner, and Don Carey misses the 3, but it does go off Alabama. Inside the pylon says, does Alabama have the easiest road to the Final Four of the teams left? I wouldn't say it's an easy path, but I would say it is easier than most. I do agree with you there. I wouldn't say it's super easy because, again, any team can beat any team the way that the tournament is going right now. But for sure, I think they do have an easier path, per se, on paper than most teams. Julian Reese with a tough 2 down low. The Terps cut it to 7. Alabama up 33-26, 18 to go in the second. But Brandon Miller, he misses a 3 this time, and the ball goes out of bounds. So it's Maryland basketball. Jeff says Miller for 3. That was a big shot for Brandon Miller. Chris Glazer, he says Alabama guards are just way better than Maryland's. For sure, especially in this game. They have the length and the physicality. Jameer Young is a solid guard, but he is really struggling in this game. Can't get much going right now. Don Carey's been decent for Maryland. Hakeem Hart's driving on Brandon Miller. He's at a size disadvantage. He kicks to Don Carey. And he turns the basketball over. Javon Quinterly's driving down the floor. What a steal by Julian Reese. And now down to Don Carey. He lays it in. 33-28. Maryland is still playing hard. Hummus said, did you guys know how they used to play a game annually from 1934 to 76 of college football all-stars versus Super Bowl champ? The pros won 31-42, meaning the college team did well in the early years. That's really cool. That's really cool. Probably because the NFL teams maybe weren't as good back then. They've gotten better for sure, a lot more talented. But Alabama scores a 2. It's 35-28. And Jameer Young slips for Maryland and Alabama with the basketball. Jameer Young is really struggling with Alabama's length and physicality in this game. He's just such a short guard. He has a lot of talent, but his speed, Alabama just is too quick and long. Charles Bediako down low, and he scores over Julian Reese. Not much Reese can do with those 3 fouls. He doesn't want to pick up that 4th. And it's 37-28 Alabama, 16:30 to go in the second. Alabama looking really good in the second half so far. Bediako's up to 9 points. Where is the offense going to come for Maryland? Julian Reese hands the ball off to Jameer Young. Jameer Young gets the ball to Julian Reese, but he turns the basketball over. But Alabama was out of bounds. Easy Money says, yeah, Hummus, I remember something about that, but not a lot about that. I'm not really 100% sure either. I mean, I've heard about it as well. I do remember it, but it is something I have to do a lot more reading on for sure. Chris Glaze says, Young is selling. Young is really struggling in this game right now. I mean, if he doesn't start getting going, Maryland's not going to have a chance. He's such a talented guard. He had a lot of success in the Big Ten. He was all Big Ten second team. But I just think overall, Alabama's just too quick and long of a team for him. Inside the Palace is great night tonight, hanging with all my friends, eating a burrito, getting some ice cream, listening to Jeffrey, most awesome play-by-play YouTuber, and watching Storm Chasers. Thanks, Inside the Palace, and thank you guys so much for being here. A lot of people watching this game. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Like the stream down below. Share the stream on social media. But thank you guys so much for being here. A lot of people. Ian Martinez for 2. He knocks the shot down for Maryland, so it's down to 7. The Terps are hanging around. They're doing everything they possibly can to stay in this one. But Alabama with a 7-point lead. Alabama playing really well in the second half, but Maryland doing everything they can to hang in this one. In the corner, Alabama misses a 3. Julian Reese with the board, but Charles Bediako steals it. What a steal by Bediako, but then Hakeem Hart with the steal. Hakeem Hart down to Jameer Young, but what a block by Brandon Miller. He erased that layup from Jameer Young. Mark Sears down the floor. He kicks to Brandon Miller for 3, and Brandon Miller knocks the shot down. 40-30 Alabama. What a shot by Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller's back. That's definitely a great sign for Alabama fans if they want to go far in this tournament, seeing Brandon Miller playing this well. But what a shot by Brandon Miller. Hakeem Hart with the ball. Maryland down 10. He's trying to drive. He kicks to Julian Reese. Julian Reese, he gets fouled by Charles Bediako. But Maryland down 10, trying to hang in this one. But Alabama, their length and physicality is really starting to show up in this game. But Brandon Miller, he's hit 2 big threes in this one. He's playing some great basketball. Jeff says, Hal Miller, he's smoking. Easy Money says, great show. Thank you so much, Easy Money. James Scott, he says, Inside the Ponds, you just reminded me I have some ice cream in the freezer. Now I have to get some. Definitely in big games like this in March Madness, you definitely want to eat some ice cream. Get some great snacks. Hang out with friends. But thank you guys, everyone, for being here. Great crowd watching this game. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. But again, thanks, everyone, for being here. We got a great game. So much talent in this game from Alabama. Brandon Miller, he is a legitimate stud. He will definitely be well-deserving of a top 5 pick in the draft. He is a fantastic player overall. He's a great shooter. He can drive. He's got a great pull-up jumper. He's good at getting to the foul line. He's a good free throw shooter. But Alabama is just more than Brandon Miller. I mean, they have really good players all around. Mark Sears, the transfer from Ohio, was a big addition. Charles Bediako has really improved down low. Javon Quinterly, he's getting healthier and healthier, and he's playing really good basketball. But I think Alabama overall has a well-rounded team. They are prone to be beat. They have had some struggles this season. But they are a great team when they're playing fantastic basketball. And you look at Maryland, they've had a good season. Kevin Willard in his first year as head coach, I think that he's done a great job. A lot of people were not expecting Maryland to make the tournament. In his first season coming over from Seton Hall, he had some success as the Pirates head coach. But he's came over to Maryland. He's had some success bringing in Jameer Young, transfer from Charlotte. But I just think overall, you look at Maryland, they have a team that's capable. They have a team that's capable of winning some big games. And I think they can win this game. They're just having a hard time making shots right now. Easy Money says, I'll have to subscribe to Pollen. You sound cool, man. Inside the Pollens, he's awesome. Guys should go check him out over there. But thanks, everyone, for being here. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. But thanks so much for being here, everybody. Easy Money says, roll tide, roll, brother Jeff. Let's get her done. Alabama and Easy Money will definitely be happy tonight. Jeff should be very, very happy if Alabama gets the win. And Easy Money, I know he'll be. inside the pylon. So after Storm Chase, there are episodes of Giant Lobster. This is a crazy antenna TV channel. And there's always stuff to watch. Even if you don't have cable or streaming service, there's always stuff to watch on TV. But Alabama playing a really good second half. I think that overall, you look at Alabama, the way they're playing right now, they're definitely a team that could go far in the tournament. I think they could go potentially to a Final Four. But they just can't have a bad game. And they started out sluggish in the first half, but to Easy Money's point, they play a lot better in the second half usually. Their talent starts to show itself. But 15:05 left in the second half, and it's 40-30. Alabama over Maryland. A really good second half so far from the Crimson Tide. Jonathan Hurst, he says Quinterly's turnaround from injury was crazy. It's nice to see him healthy again. It was really sad to see him fall last year in the tournament with his ACL. That was really bad for the Crimson Tide. I think Alabama could have gone further. That was a tough loss. Easy Money says Sweet 16, baby. Don't want to get ahead of yourself. Game's not over yet. Hakeem Hart, he misses a three, but it is looking like Alabama, if they keep playing the way they are, they could definitely win this game and go to the Sweet 16. Julian Reese on the right block. He turns left shoulder. He misses the shot. They just cannot get shots to fall right now, the Terrapins. Brandon Miller with the basketball. Brandon Miller, he's driving in. And Brandon Miller, he does miss the floater, but he tries to get the ball back. But Maryland, they got the ball back going the other way. Hakeem Hart. Hakeem Hart has not had a good game so far. He's been struggling, but he's trying to drive kicks to Julian Reese, and they do call a blocking foul. Bama TV, thanks for being here. He says, very interactive. You're doing great. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. But what a game. Man, it was so close to being a charge, but he was moving over. But Julian Reese, he does struggle at the free throw line for the Terrapins. But he's got 6 points in this game. These are big free throws to try to cut Maryland's lead. And his first free throw is off. He misses. So it's still a 10-point game. James Scott says, don't worry, Princeton will get him. Oh, man. That would be insane. But Julian Reese, his second free throw, he misses that one as well. He really struggles at the free throw line, and that's tough. I think overall, you look at Maryland as a team, a lot of their players struggle at the foul line, and that's going to be really big in this game. They have to make free throws. They're 7 of 13 in this game. That's 6 points they've left on the table. Alabama 7 of 9 at the line. But Mark Sears at the top of the key. He's trying to drive on Jameer Young. And Mark Sears, the Ohio transfer, he's going to his left. And Mark Sears, he loses the basketball, but they do call a foul on Maryland. Jeff says, great stream, loving it. Thanks, Jeff, for being here. James Vaughn 07, thanks for being here. James Vaughn, he says, Alabama balling out. They are playing great. The defense is starting to pick up. The offense is still coming and going, but they're really playing great defense on the Terrapins. Maryland's a team that this season in the Big Ten, they usually can score at least 65, 70 points, but they're really going to struggle to get to that in this game. They only have 30 points and over 26 minutes of game action. That's not ideal. Jonathan Hurst, he says, Miller getting almost a week to get fully healthy. Bam wins will be crucial. And you can tell he's playing a lot better in this game. He's got a lot more burst than he had in their game against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. He's playing much better basketball in this one. In Alabama, Mark Sears hits both free throws, and it's 42-30. The Crimson Tide are starting to pull out this lead. Maryland really needs to find a way to get some offense. Jameer Young, he knocks down a 2 to cut this lead down to 10. Alabama's really been pushing it out, though. This was a close game going back and forth, but it's definitely starting to extend. Easy Money says, dude, all over Sears on the foul. That was a hard foul. But Javon Quinterly, his burst to the basket is back. He's playing much better basketball the last few games. He was good earlier on in the season, but it took him a while to get back from his injury. He's playing great. So it's 44-32. Crimson Tide up 12. Don Carey kicks it to Julian Reese. And Julian Reese is going down on Alabama, and he knocks a shot down. What a 2-and-1. That's a tough play for Alabama to defend down. And Julian Reese is a good post player. Easy money is a good move and shot by Quinterly for sure. Go Saints. Malay's watching a Chick-fil-A movie, so I went on YouTube and found your great stream. Subscribe. Thanks so much, Go Saints. Thanks for being here. Thanks so much for subscribing. I mean, hey, watching those kind of movies are pretty cool, but, you know, you like that sort of thing, but there's nothing that beats March Madness. So thanks for being here. There's nothing like March Madness in college basketball. We got a big game to wrap up the day. It's been a fantastic Saturday of hoops. But Julian Reese at the line for Maryland, trying to cut this lead. He does hit the free throw to finish the three-point play. So Maryland hanging in there, only down 9. Alabama up 44-35, 12:50 to go in the second. And you've got Javon Quinterly with the ball. He swings to Brandon Miller. He shoots a deep three. He does miss this time. But the ball getting tapped around. Charles Bediako kicks out to Javon Quinterly. He misses as well. But Alabama continuing to get extra shots, but they miss again, and Julian Reese finally gets the board for Maryland. Alabama had a lot of chances. But this game going back and forth, both teams running the floor, both teams playing great defense. But Patrick Emilion for Maryland got hit in the head hard, and he's bleeding bad. Hopefully he'll be okay. He's on the sideline. They're having to tend to him. They might have to review this one for a flagrant potentially. But that's tough. He got hit hard. He was coming down with the ball. He got hit somewhere. That's a major hit. There's a lot of blood. Hopefully he'll be okay. They'll probably have to stitch him up. But he's going back into the locker room. Both these teams are being really physical in this. Oh, it was his own player. There's nothing on Alabama. It was on his own player, Julian Reese. That's unfortunate. Friendly fire. A lot of players were going after the basketball, and Julian Reese, his teammate, accidentally hit him on the head. That's really unfortunate. But thankfully, there's no flagrant foul. Nothing bad between the two teams. It's just an unfortunate play. But Patrick Emilion has a big gash on his head. That's terrible. Easy Money says every game he seems to be getting better like last year for sure. I think Javon Quinterly is definitely improving as the season's gone along, but hopefully Patrick Emilion will be okay for Maryland. But Maryland with the basketball after all of that. Jameer Young driving in, and Jameer Young, he misses a layup. Mark Sears with the board. Big miss for the Terps. 12-10 to go in the second. And Charles Bediako, he gets denied by Julian Reese, but they call a foul, and that's Julian Reese's 4th foul. James Scott says, wasn't an elbow swing. Jeff said he was hit by his own player. Julian Reese was going for the ball, and his elbow just accidentally landed on his teammate's face. That was terrible. But Charles Bediako had an easy layup, but he got fouled by Julian Reese. And unfortunately for the Terps, that's his 4th foul, so he's going to have to sit. And now Maryland just does not have a lot of post presence now, especially now that Patrick Emilion, he's in the locker room. And you have Julian Reese with 4 fouls. So Maryland just does not have a lot of post presence. Alabama probably can dominate on that front now. But Alabama at the line, and they missed the first free throw. 44-35. Easy Money says Bediako needs more free throw practice. That was not a very good free throw at all. Definitely struggles at the free throw. A lot of centers do. The European centers do a great job shooting threes, but sometimes a lot of the Americans struggle. Bediako, he misses both, but he gets his own rebound off the tip. Alabama doing a great job on the glass, especially now that Maryland's a really short team out there. Mark Sears trying to drive it. He steps back for a 3. Mark Sears misses. Don Carey with the rebound. Maryland only down 9. Bediako had a chance to extend to double digits, but he misses both free throws. Don Carey, I think the ball is off of Alabama. Trip Pugh, he says, what's up? I'm back. Thanks for coming back. We got a really good game. But Alabama only up by 9. Maryland hanging around. Only 11:50 to go in this high-level game. It's been going back and forth. But Alabama consistently has had a lead in the second half. Jonathan Hurst says, feed Bediako. I agree. Again, it seems like Alabama's getting a little too shot happy right now. They're shooting too many threes. Probably need to get the ball on the block, especially now that Maryland's post play is just not going to be there. They don't have Julian Reese in the game. Patrick Emilion is in the locker room being tended to. Maryland does not have a lot of post play right now. So, I mean, you look at it overall, I think that you need to get some more post play out of Bediako. I'd stop shooting the threes. You don't need it. You're in the lead. Mears here. Thanks for being here. I got Bama. Gigs for Squid. Thanks for being here. He says, keep it up. Great coverage and channel. Always here to support when I can. Thanks for being here. We got a great crowd tonight. Thanks everyone that showed up tonight. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media as well. But thanks everyone for being here. It's been a fantastic game. It's been a fantastic stream. But Alabama has had several chances to extend this lead. They could have gone up by double digits several times and just run away with this game. But Maryland's hanging in there. They're doing everything they possibly can just to hang in there. Easy Money says, watch in the next minute and a half. Bama will be up by 17-18. Just watch after the commercial. It is possible. I think overall Alabama definitely has the potential to just blow this thing open. There's been several times where they almost have. But Maryland just hanging in there, playing as much defense as they possibly can, but it is getting them into foul trouble and injury. The physicality of Alabama is really tough. That's what makes them such a tough team to beat. And I think a better team than Penn State is they have the physicality, even though Penn State is a physical team, but they're just not as long and talented. But Alabama, when they start shooting a lot of threes and they're not making them, they don't have to do that. They're too talented of a team to be shooting all those jump shots. You don't have to do it. You get in the paint and you do everything you possibly can to get easy shots, especially when you're as talented as Alabama is, that you can get easy shots, drive into the paint, get fouled, hit some free throws. Easy Money says, yeah, they are injuring themselves. I mean, it literally is friendly fire. Thanks for being here. Zafran Libin, he says, score. Alabama's up 44-35. Maryland down 9, trying to hang in this game. Rayleigh Creative Travel, thanks for being here. He says, new to the channel, what part of the country you in? Nice work, keep it up. I'm on the East Coast in the state of North Carolina. So it's definitely laid out here. We definitely got to watch March Madness, staying up. Glad you guys are all here. But it's going to be very interesting to see if Easy Money's prediction of Alabama starting to pull away, being up 17-18 in the next minute and a half will be true or not. Maryland's trying to hang in there. They've done a good job. But if Maryland could just hit some shots, they could potentially spell the upset here. But they're really struggling on the offensive side of the ball. But you look at Brandon Miller, 0 points in their last game. He's got 15 tonight. That's a big reason Alabama's in the lead. If he didn't have any points, Alabama would be losing. Another missed layup for Maryland. Dante Scott misses. Alabama gets the ball. Mark Sears. The Crimson Tide are fighting for every loose ball. They might not be shooting the basketball well, but the hustle is there. And Alabama misses the layup, but they get fouled. Rayleigh Creative Travel says, I heard a little Southern there laughing a lot. I'm from Alabama originally, but live in South Carolina now. A lot of people say that I sound a little Southern for sure. Some people say I don't, but some people say I do. I guess it's borderline. North Carolina's not super Southern, I guess, but it is. Easy Money said, Rayleigh, it's a great channel. Jeffrey's awesome. Great play-by-play and interaction with us subscribers. Thank you, Easy Money, a lot. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. You guys are making this stream amazing. But Noah Clowney at the free throw line. He hits the first for Alabama. He's a better free throw shooter than Charles Bediako. You'd rather have him at the line for sure. Really good freshman. And Noah Clowney with the second free throw. He knocks it down as well. So it's 46-35. Alabama now up by 11. 11:30 to go in the second. But Maryland running out of time if they want to stay in this game. Julian Reese with 4 fouls. Ian Martinez is 3. But Hakeem Hart trying to drive in the paint on Noah Clowney. He misses the shot. What a good defensive play by Noah Clowney. Getting the rebound as well. Brandon Miller bringing the ball up before like a guard. Mark Sears, he's driving in. Mark Sears taking contact. He misses, but he gets fouled. Jeff says, roll Tide. Jonathan Hersey says Pringle needs more minutes. His energy is awesome. I agree. Pringle is a really good player, but he hasn't played much. Needs to play a lot more. Go Saints. He says Nate is a Hall of Fame coach. Congrats on having him. Bama fans. Bama will be a force for a while. A lot of people are afraid he could go to Texas, but I think he's going to stay at Alabama for sure, and he's done great things. Some fantastic things for the Crimson Tide basketball program. They were not a very good program for a long time. But Mark Sears having a solid game, not scoring a lot of points, but having a solid game. But he hits his first free throw. But Julian Reese having to come back in the game for Maryland with 4 fouls with 11 to go. It's probably going to be really hard for him not to foul out of this one. Jonathan Hurst, he says Clowney could be a late first-round pick. I think so. He does not get as much of attention as Brandon Miller does because Brandon Miller is such a great player. But Noah Clowney is fantastic. He is really good. Red Dawn turns salty. Thanks for being here. He says Roll Tide. Roll Tide are rolling right now. Easy money. Might be correct. The Crimson Tide are halfway to the 17, 18-point lead he was talking about. They're up by 13. 10:45 to go in the second. Julian Reese could have picked up a charge there, but they didn't call it. Dante Scott with the wild shot. He misses. Reese cannot get the rebound, and Brandon Miller's bringing the ball down the floor. Alabama up 13. Mark Sears for 3. Alabama misses the shot, but Brandon Miller with the rebound. Alabama's starting to pull away a little bit. They're up 13, 10:20 to go in the second. Brandon Miller, he's driving in yet again. Not much resistance. He misses the shot, but he gets fouled. Rayleigh Creative Travel says, watch for Pringle in the next year or two. He's going to be a great player. I agree. He's shown a lot of flashes this year. Dave Valensky says, Bama's just too good. The only game I feel that will give them trouble is San Diego State. They have an excellent defense. That is going to be the key, is a team that's going to have to play good defense all game long. I think Maryland was doing that, but they're just not making shots right now, and you have to make shots if you want to win. You can only have your defense help you for so long until eventually you have to make shots. Inside the policy, I just took Alabama minus 12 and a half. That means Bama needs to win by 13 or more, right? Absolutely correct. Go Saints. He said I pull for any SEC team that's not playing Mount Laughing a lot. A lot of people do. You want to do everything you possibly can. Support the conference. It's a good look overall. But Brandon Miller, a great free throw shooter, he knocks both down, and Bama's up by 15 now. Bama TV says, yeah, I stream video games for a living on Twitch, and I can talk. You have major potential. Keep it up. Good work. Thank you, Bama TV. Thank you guys so much for being here. You guys make it all possible. But Alabama up 15 with under 10 to go. And Mark Sears, he gets blocked, but it's off of Maryland. Thank you so much, Bama TV, for the compliment, though. Easy Money says, Pollen, yeah, that's the way the boogies work, I think. Yeah, if it's 12 and a half and you do the minus, it's 13 or more. Michael Williams, thanks for being here. He says, Maryland's still hanging around this game. Alabama needs to put them away quickly before things go sour. This is a tournament of upsets. I agree with you, Michael, but Maryland is really struggling on the offensive end. And to Easy Money's point, it is close to my prediction. You are definitely correct. Your prediction is 100% accurate. Alabama's starting to pull away right when you said they were. Brandon Miller trying to get some separation on the block. But Noah Clowney does miss a 3. Maryland needs some offense right now. Down 15, 9:30 to go in the second. Dante Scott's driving it out of control, but he gets the foul call. Welcome back, Carter. Roll Tide. Thanks for being here. But this has been a high-level game. Physicality on both sides of the ball. Both defenses playing well, but Alabama's offense and physicality and talent is definitely starting to show itself. Easy Money says past a minute and a half, though. My prediction is close. For sure, Alabama's definitely starting to pull away. I thought that Maryland would have to at least score 65 points to have a chance to beat Alabama, but they're not going to get anywhere close to that unless they just start shooting a lot of shots. They're really struggling on the offensive end. Alabama's everywhere. They almost make him turn it over again. Ian Martinez, he misses a 3, and Charles Bediako, he blocks out Julian Reese, and there's nothing that he can do with those 4 fouls. You don't want to get an over and back. Mark Sears, he's dribbling all over Don Carey. Noah Gurley has it back to Mark Sears. But Mark Sears is just dribbling everywhere. He has been definitely quicker than Jameer Young. Noah Gurley at the top of the key. He's driving in. Kicks to Brandon Miller. Can he hit his third 3? He cannot. He misses. But yet again, Alabama with another offensive rebound, and they're now up by 17. Chester Wilson Jr. says, Roll Tide. Thanks for being here, Chester. But Alabama's pulling away. They're clicking on all cylinders, and they are rolling. Inside the Pylon said, everyone in here that hasn't already liked, sub, comment, and punched the notification bell. Thank you, Inside the Pylons. Thank you, everyone, for being here. You guys are making this stream amazing. This game has been awesome, but Alabama's starting to pull away, playing really good on the offensive end. Easy Money says, Rayleigh, what do you think? Great channel, huh? Thanks, Easy Money. Inside the Pylon said, I'm thinking about calling that game tomorrow. Just hope I'm not too busy tomorrow. Should be fantastic. A lot of great games tomorrow as well. Rayleigh Creative Travel said, I subbed this channel. So yes, it is Easy Money. Thanks, Rayleigh Creative Travel. Thanks for the sub, and thanks for being here as well. Fantastic game, but Maryland's offense is just cold as ice. They cannot score. You definitely cannot beat Alabama if you can't score, because it doesn't matter how great a defense you play, you're just not going to win. And Maryland only with 35 points in 31 minutes of basketball action, that's just not going to get it done. Jeff says, Roll Tide, roll. How about Crimson Tide, baby? The Crimson Tide are rolling, especially on defense. I know their offense is coming around, but they are doing fantastic on the defense side of the ball. Easy Money says, Gurley, now told you about the bench play. We got ballers for sure. All the attention goes to Mark Sears, Javon Quinterly, Brandon Miller, but Noah Gurley's great as well. All their players are really solid. Chester Wilson Jr. says it's a long time coming. Alabama basketball is finally a competitive team. Roll Tide. They're a great team. I mean, I remember when they had Colin Sexton with Avery Johnson as head coach, and I thought that, overall they were a solid team, and I thought Alabama was getting a little bit better, but they just did not have a lot outside of Colin Sexton. But this team with Brandon Miller, who's fantastic, but you have all these other players as well, and Nate Oates is a great coach. That's why they're doing a great job as a team overall. James Scott, he says, Maryland has to either press on D or just sit back and ride out the loss. Yeah, they're going to have to do everything they can to disrupt, but it's not going to matter if they can't make shots. They can't score. CJ1818 says, smooth play-by-play, much appreciated. Thank you, CJ. Thanks for being here. Rayleigh Creative Travel, he says, I almost went to Columbia, South Carolina a few weeks ago to watch them play, but couldn't make it. I wished I would have, because we at BAM have not been good at basketball in forever. Oh, yeah, and Alabama's great this year. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if Nate Oates can continue to have Alabama a good year in and year out. I think he can. I really do. As long as he stays at Alabama and doesn't go anywhere else, and I don't think that he will, then Alabama should be a force for years to come. They're playing great basketball. Easy Money says, Chester, yes, sir. Better late than never, though. Michael Williams says, who do you like in college football? I take it you're in SEC football. I mean, I like, I've grown up as an Alabama fan. My ancestors have been Alabama fans for a long time. I like Alabama, but I also like North Carolina because it's where I live. A soft spot team's Indiana because they're not really good. But I like a lot of teams. I'm just a sports fan in general. I just love sports. A very unbiased fan. Even the teams that I like. Just love sports. Glad you got all you guys are here. Dave Valinsky says Maryland has a case of the Iowa State. Oh, man, Iowa State could not score. They only had 41 points in the whole entire game the other night against Pittsburgh. That was awful. That was terrible. But Maryland, where's the offense going to come from? Jameer Young gets the ball to Julian Reese, and yet another turnover. Just the hands of Alabama always there, creating turnovers. Easy Money says Avery Johnson seemed to be more like a buddy or something. I liked him. Nate Oates is elite caliber. He has our players believing. I agree with that. I think Avery Johnson, he's a nice guy. He's a fantastic head coach. But, yeah, he just did not get his players to play well at all times. Inside the Pylons, he likes UNC, Alabama, and IU. Thanks, Inside the Pylons. But love sports in general. Very unbiased sports fan. Definitely love a lot of teams. Just love basketball and football. Try to watch some other sports, but definitely love basketball and football. But Alabama now up by 17. Noah Gurley in the corner. He misses a three, but he almost gets his own miss. But Maryland does get the ball, but still down 17. 8 to go in the second. The Terps have not scored in many minutes. Ian Martinez is driving in, and he scores and won. Finally, Maryland gets on the board again. Dave Liston, Maryland caught a case of the Iowa State. Iowa State was horrible. I mean, it was bad. I felt bad for the Cyclones. They had a great season. They sweep Baylor. Sweeping Baylor was Not an easy task. I mean, maybe they just matched up good with the Bears. I have no idea, or just played 3 of their best performances of the season. But Pittsburgh is a solid team. But losing the way they did to Pittsburgh was not a good look. Rayleigh Creative Travel says if he can get them to have a great year with all the off-court drama this year, then he's a great coach and can coach anyone. Completely agree. The fact that the team stayed together throughout all that's gone on, still playing high-level basketball, and I think that what he's done this year, he's going to be able to bring in some more really good recruits because of the success that this year's team's had. I think other programs like Indiana, who are starting to, build up as a program again, Mike Woodson should be able to bring in some recruits. A lot of programs that haven't been good in a while starting to play better basketball. NIL might be helping with that. The coaches are doing a really good job. They're able to bring in some players. Chester Wilson Jr., he says, I've been waiting a long time for Alabama basketball to great. We have a lot of work to do. But still, Alabama basketball is playing a lot better. I mean, they're doing a great job. And I think as long as Nate Oates stays, it should be good for years to come. I really believe that. James Scott said those were Maryland's first points in 2 minutes. But it's 52-38 Alabama over Maryland. The Terps are really struggling right now on the offensive end, and it's because of Alabama's length and physicality on the defensive end. You look at some teams, and sometimes they just have a bad game offensively, but they're having a bad game on offense because of Alabama. Maryland is a decent offensive team. I wouldn't say they're great. I wouldn't say they're poor, but overall, Alabama, they're the reason that Maryland is having a bad offensive night, and that is really good to see if you're an Alabama fan. You want your team to be the reason they're shooting poorly. And Maryland is definitely rattled by Alabama. Ruben Herrera, thanks for being here. He says, dude, awesome stream with another sport fan. Usually root for underdog. Thanks for being here. A lot of people like to root for the underdog. You want to see the underdog win. It makes it a lot more interesting, especially to see their faces when you have like an FDU that beat Purdue. FDU, the players were crying. They were so happy. Princeton winning both games that they've won over Missouri and Arizona. They were so happy. That's just so cool to see. You love to see their reactions. You don't think that the bigger teams expect to win. They still have to play hard, and when they win, they're really excited. But when those little schools win, their excitement is unbelievable. Easy Money says, Chester, we've sent a lot of players to the NBA over the years and had a few good teams, but this team is great with the best team chemistry that I've ever seen. 100%. I mean, it's not just enough to have some talent that's NBA level. You have to have a team full of players that believe, and you have to have talent. That's what this year's Alabama team has. It's not just Brandon Miller. Because Colin Sexton's a great player, and he was in Alabama, but they didn't have a team around him. This year's team has Brandon Miller, and they have all these other players, and that's what makes them dangerous. You have to have a full team. You have to have a team full of players that are all playing at a high level. That's what makes it key. Easy Money says this team will get over the hump championship, baby. I don't know. I still don't know if they'll win a championship. You never know with this many upsets that have happened. Any team can get beat. But I will say Alabama has a really good chance to win a national championship this year. They could do it. And the fact they can goes to show how far Alabama's come. Gigster Squid, he says, I'm a USC guy and not a fan of the SEC, but I'm jealous of Alabama's recent dominance in football and basketball props. I mean, they're really good. They're good in both sports. And if you're not an Alabama fan, and you are jealous for sure, but like in a bad way, not like in your example where you're giving props, but some people get really upset about that, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, these other programs, they just got to start doing good as well in both sports. And Alabama being good in football and basketball, to me, goes to show that you can be good in both sports. Some people will tell you that your school can only be good in football like in Alabama or Georgia, or you can only be good in basketball like in Indiana or Kansas. That's not true. You could be good in both, and I'm hoping more schools see that. And a team like Kansas can get good in football as well, or a team like Indiana can get good in football as well. You don't have to only be good in one sport. Alabama's proving that. Chester Wilson Jr. says it's time for Alabama basketball to be like the Golden State Warriors when they started winning championship when Steve Kerr showed up. Well, I mean, it could happen. I mean, Nate Oates, like I said, if he stays at Alabama, it could happen. But still, it's a lot tougher to do that in college basketball. There's so many other great teams, but you never know. Rayleigh Creative Travel says our chances go up each time a Cinderella keeps pulling upsets, laughing out loud. But as long as you don't let Cinderella upset you, Alabama should be fine for sure. Javon Quinterly, he's driving in, and he lays it in, 54-38. Alabama's just pulling away. 7:30 to go in the second. Does Maryland have one last gasp in him? Jameer Young, kicks to Ian Martinez. He's been a nice spark plug off the bench, but he misses a shot there. Julian Reese with the board, and he lays it in. Maryland cuts it down to 14, 54-40, 7:15 to go. Chester Wilson Jr. said, we need a championship in basketball. This could be the year. It definitely looks like Alabama might get past Maryland. It's possible. Dave Valensky says, Alabama reminds me of the 1994 Arkansas team. Man, Nolan Richardson had some great teams at Arkansas. The 40 minutes of heck, those teams were great. Nate Oates has definitely got Alabama playing great basketball, just like Nolan Richardson did at Arkansas back in the day. Easy Money says, Giggs, as a band fan, I'm loving our football prestige. It sure is nice to be elite this season in basketball. I think it will continue with Nate Oates coaching. I do too. But thanks so much, everyone, for being here. You guys are awesome. You made the stream great. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. But thanks, everyone, for being here. You guys have made this stream awesome. Alabama with a 14-point lead over Maryland, 54-40. 6:40 to go in the second. Hakeem Hart driving in. Hakeem Hart goes up, and he gets the roll. It's down to 12. Maryland trying to maybe make one last run to maybe get back in this one. It might be too little too late. They're trying to do full court press, but Alabama handles it, gets it across the court. Crimson tied up 12, 6:20 to go in the second. Alabama's definitely handled the pressure of Maryland that they've turned up in the second half. But Javon Quinterly with a step back, he knocks it down. Quinterly with a big shot. He has a lot of burst in those legs right now. Chester Wilson Jr. says, San Diego State, you better watch out for sure. But Maryland down 15 with 6 minutes to go in the second. Jameer Young for two. He misses yet again. He's had a bad night all game long. The length of Alabama's really rattled him. But Alabama for another three. They do not hit that one, and it's off Maryland. Rayleigh Crave Travel said, I was excited to see Arkansas win over Kansas, but didn't see it actually going to happen. I don't think a lot of people saw it. Some people called for it. It's unfortunate Bill Self wasn't able to coach. Prayers for him. But overall, Arkansas played a great game. Austin Williams says, hey, what's up, Jeffrey? The champs went down. Arkansas is very good this time of year. Yes, Eric Muslim has done a great job. They've been to all, these deep runs in the tournaments, 2 Elite Eights, and they could go to the Elite Eight for the third year in a row if they win in the Sweet 16. He's done a great job. And they have a great team. But Maryland, they steal the basketball. Don Carey kicks it to Jameer Young. And Jameer Young, he finally gets a shot to go down with a layup. It rolled in. 57-44, Alabama, 5:30 to go in the second. Brandon Miller, they're double team, and he kicks it to Mark Sears. Again, handling that press. As long as Alabama does that, they should hold on to this victory. They keep making shots. They make their free throws, play fundamental basketball. But Mark Sears driving in yet again where he's been lethal going downhill. Charles Bediako, he does miss a layup. Dante Scott with the board. So Maryland down 13 with the basketball going down the floor. Jameer Young kicks to Julian Reese. And Julian Reese is trying to drive on the right block on Charles Bediako. And they call a blocking foul. I thought Reese might have fouled out, but they call a block. Gix or Squid says maybe it will. I think NIL has created a shift, but again, I recognize quality and don't hate on Alabama, but I do think USC is on the up with Lincoln Riley. I agree. I do think that Lincoln Riley, as long as he can get a defense, he struggled with defenses throughout his college coaching career at Oklahoma and USC, but he is making USC a better program again. But NIL definitely making a lot of teams good for sure. Ross Hargett, he says Bama has so many ways to win. Even when our threes aren't dropping, they play great defense, rebound well, and have multiple players that can score, not just Miller. That's how you win. It's a team effort, and you got to be able to score from 2 and from 3 and from the free throw line. Many different ways to score. You have to do that. You cannot just rely on the three-point line. Clint Moses says, tap like for Only Talk Sports. Thank you, Clint Moses. Easy Money says, you're welcome, Joe. We all think you're awesome, too. Thank you so much, Easy Money. But you guys truly are great. You guys make all of this possible. Michael Williams, thank you for all you do, Joe. How old are you, my brother? You seem to have a head on your shoulders to be a young adult. Thank you, Michael. I'm 19. I just turned 19 a couple months ago, but thank you guys so much for being here. Hopefully, my head on my shoulders, hopefully will definitely help me out. I don't know what's going to happen in life, but taking it day by day, but definitely enjoying watching college basketball, doing these live reactions, and you guys make it fantastic. This is a fantastic game. Alabama up 57-45, and they call a foul on Maryland. Maryland thought they had a steal. Eric Miller says, I have Bama winning it all. Who plays the winner of this game? Alabama could win it all. I really do. I think Alabama could win it all for sure. I mean, they have the team to get the job done. It will be really interesting to see how Alabama does against San Diego State. That's who they're going to play next, Eric Miller. But if Alabama does win this game, they'll play San Diego State. That should be a really tough matchup because of the defense. But as long as Alabama's making shots, I think they'll have a great chance to win that game as well. Williams says, haven't been a University of Maryland fan since my friend passed away. Thanks for being here, William. That's sad on him. Always praying for people who pass away. It's awful. Rayleigh Crave Travels says, I'm glad they're playing Maryland. They will be getting beat now, laughing out loud. Easy Money said they called a blocking foul on Bama. Jeff, that's a charge on Reese back call. I agree. It definitely could have been a charge. But I don't think it's going to matter at the end of the day, though, the way Alabama's playing. Jameer Young with a wild shot, and he misses. Charles Bediako with a read on 59-45. Chester Wilson Jr. says, Alabama basketball waiting a long time for this moment. Let's bring home that national championship. Again, they could. Hopefully for you, they are able to do that. Easy Money says, really not. They're just playing up to their opponent's level, still in by double digits, though. Sometimes I think Alabama does play their competition, but I think in this game, Alabama's just not shooting the basketball as well as they do in some games. But they are playing great defense. They're not overlooking Maryland at all. Dave Lynn said, if you want to know what's going on in the Big Ten, my friend, YouTuber called Big Ten Ted. That's cool. Eric Miller says, cool, thanks to Ramey. Gixer Squid says, I have Baylor for the championship. Baylor could win. They got 3 great guards. If you look at L.J. Cryer, Keontae George, and Adam Flagler, but they have been a team that's been banged up. But if they can get healthy down the stretch of the season, they could go far. Hummus here says, San Diego State is a dangerous team. Brian Dutcher's a great coach. Brian Dutcher's a fantastic coach. And he's the reason they're a really good team. But thank you guys so much for all the compliments tonight. You guys have you've made me feel really good tonight. Thank you guys so much. Your compliments are so welcome and awesome. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Ross Hargett says, Alabama versus Georgia for the national championship, a rematch from earlier in the season. That'll be a great rematch. Gonzaga, I think a lot of people aren't sure if Gonzaga can go all the way, because they don't have as good a guard play as they've had in the past. Jalen Suggs was fantastic. They've had some other really good guards, Ryan Nembhard. But Gonzaga with Drew Timme, they can get the right matches. I think they could go all the way. And Alabama definitely is the hot pick because they're probably the most talented team left in the tournament. Maybe that's a bit debatable. But still, they are a really talented team. Rayleigh Crave Travels says Bama's a habit of putting up too many threes, so hope they drive a little more against San Diego State. That is, to me, their biggest issue. They do shoot a lot of threes, especially when they don't have to. Easy Money says Ross possibly. I'm thinking Texas with Bama winning the championship. That can happen as well. Texas did struggle a bit against Penn State. That was interesting. But Texas versus Bama will be fantastic. That'll be a great game. Michael Williams says, what games are you streaming tomorrow? That's a great question. I'm looking at the schedule right now and trying to figure out my schedule. There's a lot of great games tomorrow. Definitely. I mean, you could consider maybe the 2:40 game, K-State, Kentucky. I'm not sure if I can do that one. Marquette, Michigan State's really good as well. I'll definitely have to figure out what games to do. Indiana, Miami's a really good game as well. I'm not exactly sure, but I'll definitely figure it out. But thanks for being here, everybody. Hummus Hero, he says, when I listened to the Big Ten team to fail in the championship game, I forgot about Illinois. The Deron Williams, Luther head teams of 6 in total. It's a curse on the conference. For sure. I mean, the Big Ten's really struggling lately. Easy Money said Baylor about the only big dog left in our bracket, Arizona and Virginia. If Baylor goes all the way, that would be a great game between Alabama and Baylor. That would be a fantastic game. Neil Childers, thanks for being here. He says, Houston looks good. Hard to come to somebody's stadium, laughing a lot Auburn and dominate. Yeah, that was a great game for Alabama. Adam List, thanks for being here, Adam. I got Creighton in the finals versus Houston. That's an interesting one right there. Creighton could go all the way. They play Baylor, though, tomorrow. That'll be a really tough game. But the Blue Jays are a talented team. The Blue Jays have good players all across the board, and Greg McDermott is a good head coach. Austin Williams says TCU's a sleeper team. Mike Miles is the reason, though. Mike Miles is a great player, Austin. You are absolutely correct. They could go all the way. Will be tough for so many other good teams, though, but that is a possibility. Alabama up 59-45 on Maryland, 4 to go in the second. Javon Quinterly for 3. He knocks it down. What a shot. 62-45. Alabama's still chunking up threes, but they're starting to make them now. And Maryland down by 17 yet again. And it looks like Maryland's about out of time. Maryland has some good players, but the deficit's too large. They're running out of time. Julian Reese, he turns left shoulder, and he gets blocked by Bediako. What a block. Javon Quinterly with the basketball. Rayleigh Creative Travel says Michigan State Marquette is a good one because that could go either way. That is a really good game. Marquette, a lot of people probably think that they'd be the odds-on favorite, but Michigan State is a good team. Javon Quinterly with another 3, and he knocks it down with a hand in his face. Alabama's smiling down the floor. They're up by 20, 3 to go in the game, and the Crimson Tide are rolling right now. Easy Mike says Ross, Bama needs revenge on the Zags. They beat us this year. They got lucky. All Bediako playing better now, our center. I completely agree as well. I think Alabama could beat Gonzaga in a rematch. But Drew Timmy's still a great player. Julian Reese with the turnaround. Up and under, and he hits a layup. Adam List's thoughts on the Duke loss. Duke really struggled. Their freshmen struggled. Tennessee, they played great defense. And I think overall, you look at Rick Barnes, got a huge win for him and the Tennessee program. A lot of people have talked about how Rick Barnes never advances in March Madness. That was a huge, huge win for Rick Barnes. I think Duke was really rattled. Jeremy Roach got in foul trouble. Filipowski did not have his best game. And overall, Tennessee just played great on the defensive end. And Olivier Nakuma had a great game. Jeff says for 3, oh yeah, baby. Alabama making some shots. Adam List says, feels like St. Mary's not being talked about enough. I agree. I mean, after the way they played against Gonzaga, getting beat by a decent amount in that game, losing by like 25-plus points, a lot of people started to fall off on St. Mary's, but overall, they're looking pretty good again. Dave Lenska, my best memory is when my Golden Gophers went to the Final Four. My worst memory is when they were caught cheating and they had to take down the bear and give back the trophy. Yeah, that's unfortunate, like with Louisville as well, with Rick Pitino. It's unfortunate for sure. But even though it gets taken away, you still have the memory of it, and it still counts to a lot of fans' minds. That's really unfortunate. Easy Mike says hummus, laughing all but the Big Ten still elite basketball conference, always respectable. They have a lot of great teams, and now adding UCLA and UCLA could really help out. And I think that you could also have Indiana improving again. So still some hope for the Big Ten. Jeff says for 3 again. Bama's on fire. Jonathan Hurst says March Javon Quinterly. March Javon Quinterly is a lot better than any other month Javon Quinterly for sure. He is playing great. Easy Bud says Jeff, thumbs up. They're falling on the threes. Rayleigh Creative Travel. It's just time to put the bench and give those young boys some playing time because the later the tournament gets, the less likely they play. I agree. When you're up, put the bench in. And Maryland with yet another turnover. 66-47 Alabama. 2 minutes to go in the second. Easy Mice is Quinterly having a good game. Quinterly is a big key for Alabama. His injury last year definitely hurt Alabama's chances of making a run last year. Austin Williams said this could also be Indiana's year to make a run. I agree. I think Indiana could if they can get by Miami. Houston's been solid, but Houston struggled as well. Indiana could go far. Trace Jackson Davis is fantastic. It will be interesting. Possibly help out Mike Woodson with recruiting as well for future years. But Alabama up 66-47 over Maryland. 150 to go in the second. Alabama's in cruise control. Javon Quinterly still in the game. Still playing great. Faking everywhere. And Noah Clowney misses, but he gets fouled. Adam List says you got FDU or FAU. FDU is possible. They could win, but I really like Florida Atlantic. As long as Florida Atlantic plays well, I think that they could still, get that win fairly easily. I think FDU, they're a really scrappy team. I think they're going to play really hard, but Florida Atlantic played a great game against Memphis. They have a lot more size. I know Purdue did as well. But I could see Fairleigh Dickinson winning, but I would lean Florida Atlantic. Easy Money says, all right, Bediako. Got a free throw scare when he shoots free throws, laughing. I'm like, come on, make it, but he's a great center. He is a great center. You just don't want him getting fouled for sure. at the end of a game and having to make some free throws. I'm not saying he's like Shaquille O'Neal or Udoka Azubuike, the center that Kansas had bad, but he's definitely not a great free throw shooter. Austin Williams said, Jeffrey is too soon, laughing aloud. We still won it. Yeah, they still won it. Unfortunately, it don't count, but yeah, you definitely did win it. Easy Mike says, Rayleigh, yeah, they're rotating a little on the bench. Gurley was in. Well, Alabama now emptying the bench now. Dave Lynch says, have a nice night, everyone. I will come up with a little bit more tournament knowledge for tomorrow. See you then. I'll definitely try to live stream a game or two. I have to find out my schedule, but hope to see you guys there. Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. But you guys have made this an awesome stream. But Alabama with a fantastic game on both sides of the ball, up 20 on Maryland, 125 to go in the second. And it's sad to see the Maryland players upset. But they definitely will be going home, and Alabama will be going to the Sweet 16. Adam List says, how far you see Princeton going? I think Princeton could go pretty far. I think they have a chance to potentially go. You never know, maybe to the Elite Eight. You never know. I think overall Princeton's a team that they just got to keep playing well. The matchups have been pretty good. They've been getting some wins. But all it takes is one poor game just like everyone else, and they lose. But if they keep playing opportunistic basketball, they could go pretty far. Easy Money says, like I said, we win by double digits. Roll Tide roll. You got that prediction right. Sweet 16, baby. Alabama's moving on. Maryland at the free throw line, knocking down a free throw. OG Ukami, thanks for being here. He says, Bama looks so good. It's nice to find a Bama team that has a chance at the title. A lot of people are happy about that for sure. Really impressive to see Alabama being this good in basketball. Nate Oates has done a great job. It just goes to show anyone can have success at basketball. If you get a good coach, some good players. But Alabama's still hustling even with the bench. You got a 2-and-1 Pringle. Really good player in his own right as well. Easy Money said Pringle. Pringle's great. Pringle needs to play more. CJ1818 says 2 games down, 4 to go. Heck with the Bama hating media. Great play-by-play Roll Tide. Thank you, CJ. Thanks so much for being here. Everyone that was here tonight was awesome. You guys made this stream what it was. It was a fantastic stream. Pringle with the free throw. But Alabama up 70-48, 1:10 to go in the game. The game's about to wrap up. What a fantastic Saturday of college basketball and March Madness. This was a fantastic day of basketball. Some upsets, some great games. Maryland just missed a 3. Alabama with the board. And Alabama's going to run this clock out, move on to the Sweet 16 with a really easy win. It was a hard-fought win, not super easy. They had to fight for it, but in the second half, definitely Maryland just fell apart. And Alabama now at 72-48. The Terps just completely fell apart on offense. Rayleigh Creative Travel said, we live in the same area as Nick Pringle's family and where he went to high school. My brother coached him in football. He's an all-around athlete. That's really cool. Nick Pringle's a great player. That just goes to show you how deep Alabama's team is when he doesn't even play that much, and he's a fantastic player. But Maryland, they score a 2. Still playing hard, 72-50. There's only 25 seconds left. In Maryland, they just call a foul. On the Terps, Alabama will be going to the line. Not a really necessary foul there with 26 seconds left, and you're down 22. Easy Money says CJ Roll Tide Roll will do it. It's looking pretty good. Southern Reflection, thanks for being here. Good job, young man. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the compliment. Easy Money says, who hit that? Was it Welch? Alabama's playing great today. And if they play like this down the stretch of the tournament, I think that they have a great chance to go far. Jaden Quinterly at the line. He misses the first. Go Saints says, good night, all. Enjoyed the stream. I enjoyed all you guys being here as well. Thanks so much. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. But thanks, everyone, for being here. It's definitely getting late on the East Coast. But Alabama wrapping up the win 73-50 unless Maryland shoots another shot. But Maryland just fell asleep on the offensive end. Alabama took care of business, played great defense. Maryland missed another shot. Maryland with the rebound, and they get fouled by Alabama, so they'll be going to the line. Easy Mike says, I'm like McDonald's commercial. I'm loving it for sure. A really good win. Michael Williams said, who's the favorite to win the tournament now? Probably a lot of people say Alabama. I mean, I don't know if Alabama is the favorite or not. but they definitely have been really impressive. Rayleigh Creative Travels, you want fries with that? Easy money, laughing out loud. I agree with you. Rayleigh Creative Travel also said, great stream, getting so tired, bedtime, laughing a lot. Thanks for being here, Rayleigh Creative Travel. Really awesome to see the Crimson Tide play really good basketball for you. They played great. Thanks for being here. Maryland split the free throws. It's 73-51, and that should be the final. Alabama walking the ball down the floor, and they're going to pull out a 73-51 win over the Maryland Terrapins in the second round. They're going to the Sweet 16. Austin Williams says Maryland couldn't hit a three. Yeah, they definitely couldn't. Correctional officer for lockdown says Alabama, Arkansas for the championship. Thanks for being here. That could happen. The way Arkansas played against Kansas and Alabama's playing great basketball, I could see it. Easy Money says, actually, that'll be good about now, some fries. Jeff says, great stream. Enjoy it. Thanks for being here. Correctional officer for lockdown. Alabama's going to win it all. That could happen. A lot of people calling for it. Easy Money says, great show, Jeffrey. Hey, everyone. I enjoyed the chat with y'all. Roll Tide, roll. Thanks so much for being here, Easy Money. You and all the other Alabama fans made this a fantastic stream. Your guys' comments were awesome, and it is nice to see Alabama good in basketball. Correctional officer for lockdown says, Alabama all the way. And Easy Money says, Bama 73, Turtle 51. Definitely an easy win. Jonathan Hurst says, good night, brother. Thanks for the awesome stream. Good night, Jonathan. Thanks for being here. What a great game overall. This was a fantastic game. Back and forth in the first half, but Maryland's offense just completely fell asleep. Jameer Young was rattled by the Alabama defense, the length and the physicality of their guards. Dante Scott couldn't get going for Maryland. Overall, Maryland's offense as a whole couldn't get going. And Julian Reese got in foul trouble, but Alabama, Brandon Miller came alive for stretches of this game. He had a really solid game in double digits. He had 0 points in their last game, but he had a good game. And Alabama got a lot of contributions from some of their other players as well. Alabama's a deep team. And again, Brandon Miller gets all the headlines and deservedly so. But if it was just Brandon Miller, it'd almost be a Colin Sexton type thing all over again. But they're good all over the court. Easy Money says, Jeff, roll Tide, roll Bama Nation. How do the haters like us now? We're done messing around and got good at basketball too. Jeff says, you got it, man. Roll Tide. They're a lot better. I mean, Alabama, like I said, I've watched the Crimson Tide for a long time in basketball, and they were not very good, but they've gotten a lot better. And it's really nice to see. I think Nate Oates, they're interviewing him now, and Javon Quinterly. But they had a great game. To Austin's point, I agree with this as well. I'm not ready to crown them yet, but Bama has a great chance. No one should be crowned right now. The way March Madness is going this year is showing that every team can be beat. If Alabama has a poor game, they could be beat. But Alabama is showing that they are a team that is completely capable of winning a national championship this year, especially with the amount of parity going around. It is possible. James Scott says Maryland did seem to collapse in the second part of the first half. Then they just couldn't recover. For sure. I mean, Maryland collapsed. There's nothing else you can say. This was one of those games where Maryland actually played really well, I thought, in the first half, but they didn't make shots. They could have got a lead on Alabama, but they did not. Never put any game pressure on Alabama, even though they were fighting. But then Alabama in the second half just turned it up. Michael Wilson, Maryland better start shooting some threes. Well, yeah, it's definitely over, but if the game was still going, Maryland should have done that for sure. But next season, I think Maryland could be a good team next year. I think overall, Kevin Willer's done a really good job with the Terps. And they have a good future. They have a really good future. Dan Jones says, man, look out for Gonzaga, guys. Deli. Gonzaga is a team I think could go far. They don't have the guard play that they've had in the past. Their guard play is not as good. They don't have a Jalen Suggs and Andrew Nembhard, but they have good players. And if you look at Gonzaga with Drew Timme, Julian Strada, that's two NBA-level players, and then they have a bunch of other players that are really solid as well. I think you can look at Gonzaga being a team that could go far, especially because a lot of people are saying that this bracket's down or maybe just a lot more parity overall. There's been a lot of high-level basketball, but just more teams are good. So I think that makes it where you could definitely see a team like Gonzaga that not a lot of people are expecting maybe to go far, because this is such a different year. Easy money says Bama's had these games before, so first half and juggernaut the second half. It is concerning when that happens because sometimes you're waiting for that second half burst, and if you're just having a bad game, it never comes. But to your point, I have watched a lot of Alabama this year as well, and in the first half, they look like a team that's easily beatable, and then they just turn it on in the second half. That's why I kept saying, in my opinion, I felt that Maryland needed to get ahead in that first half, to your point, because I felt Alabama was eventually going to turn it on. But see, Maryland never got the lead. Maryland had chances. If Maryland could have got up like 8-10 in that first half, then the game would have been really interesting because then Alabama would have had to have come back. Then they would have gone on the run, and could Maryland keep the lead, or would they have given it up to Alabama? See, Maryland never got the lead. So with Alabama being more of a second half team, they just turned it on in the second half, already being ahead. They didn't have to come from behind. And I think that made a big difference because you see a lot of other teams that we've seen this year, especially now in March Madness already, like Kennesaw State over Xavier. Kennesaw State led at half, and they had a lead over Xavier, but then Xavier came back and barely won. And that could happen in this game. Maryland, if they had an 8-10 point lead on Alabama, and then Alabama went on their run, they could have found a way to make it really close at the end, and then Alabama probably would have squeaked out a close win just like Xavier did. But I think that looking at this game, since Alabama led the whole time, it never gave Maryland a chance. Easy Money says, well, y'all, later, great show, Jeffrey. Take care, everyone. Roll Tyrell. I'll look you up and subscribe, Pylons. Thanks for being here, Easy Money. You're a fantastic college basketball fan for sure. Thanks for being here. Your Crimson Tide got a big win, and they are definitely looking like a team that could make a big run in March Madness right now with the way they're playing and the fact that the bracket, a lot of the teams are going down in that region. Should be a lot of fun, but thanks for being here, Easy Money. Can't wait to see you in future streams if you come back. Thanks for being here. Try to maybe do a stream or two tomorrow. I have to figure out my schedule, but it should be a lot of fun regardless. March Madness is delivering. You can't ask for much more. I mean, as a sports fan, loves college basketball, there's just not much better, anything better than March Madness. There's just not much better in sports. I think you look at the NBA playoffs, they're awesome. The 7-game series is really cool. And I think you look at the NFL, the playoffs are awesome. And college football, the bowls. And you have the college football playoff that's just nothing like March Madness. All these teams have a chance. A single elimination tournament is just so cool. Easy Money says, Dan, nobody's beating Bama twice. We fear no Zags. Well, I mean, if you definitely have that attitude and the Alabama players have that attitude, then there's a really good chance that Alabama could, beat Gonzaga and not let a team beat them twice. But they have to have that attitude. We're not going to get beat twice. We want to get that revenge. And Alabama is definitely a team that's talented enough to do that. Easy Money says, later, y'all. Jeff says we will be ready, and he got a thumbs up. I think Alabama will be ready, too. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how they pair up with San Diego State. I think San Diego State is definitely a team that could give Alabama fits because they're really experienced. Brian Dutcher is a great head coach, and maybe Alabama could somehow overlook San Diego State, maybe. But the way Alabama's playing, they seem to be on a mission. So it would be shocking to see if them potentially lose that game. I don't really see it. I think San Diego State would have to give it everything they've got to win that one. Their defense would have to be crisp. They'd have to have a great offensive game. It should be a great game regardless. But thanks, everyone, for being here. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. Thanks, everyone, for being here. But March Madness has been fantastic. This was a great day of basketball. With that, Arkansas went over Kansas. Shows anyone can be beat. Arkansas played a fantastic game. Eric Musselman's done a great job. They have a really talented team. Devontae Davis had a big second half. But there's been some high-level basketball games played today. Texas held on against Penn State. That was a really big win there. UCLA held on against Northwestern. Houston rolled in the second half over Auburn. Princeton beat Missouri. Missouri did not play well in that game. Tennessee beat Duke, and San Diego State beat Furman. So some really good games. I'm sure tomorrow's games are going to be great as well. I mean, you look at it overall, the slate tomorrow, the college basketball slate, you've got Some really high-level games. You've got Xavier and Pittsburgh. That could be good. Kansas State, Kentucky is a high-level game. Marquette, Michigan State. UConn, St. Mary's. Baylor, Creighton. Florida Atlantic, Fairleigh Dickinson. That's the one that sticks out for sure with the lower seeds. Indiana, Miami, Gonzaga, TCU. Really looking forward to Kansas State, Kentucky, Indiana, Miami, Creighton, Baylor. But all those games should be great. All those should be great games. Inside the Pollen said, we are guaranteed a new champion, baby. A lot of people are happy about that, besides Kansas fans for sure. But, I mean, I don't think a lot of people like the repeat champions. You want a new champion, even though it is a great story when you can win it twice like Florida did 2 years in a row back in 06, 07. And Duke did back in 91, 92. But when you have a new champion, it makes a lot more teams believe they can win it. Diane Hawkins, thanks for being here. She says, roll tide, roll. So many Alabama fans in the chat. Most of them were Alabama, and they were definitely happy. The Terps really struggling in this game, especially in the second half on the offensive end. Thought they played solid defense, but just really struggled on the offensive end. You cannot beat Alabama struggling from offense. Alabama's going to put up points. They're a team that's too talented that's not going to score in the 60s or 50s, or usually going to score in the 70s, so you have to put up points. Unless you just play a fantastic defensive game. But you have to play well on offense to be able to beat Alabama. Inside the Pollen says, Kansas is good, don't get me wrong, but it would be nice to see someone win it who's never won it before. That would be awesome. Or a team that hasn't won it in a long time. I think if for a team that hasn't won it in like 30-plus years, or a team that has never won it, that would be really cool to see. You know, you want to see a lot more parity. You want to see teams that have never won it, or a team that hasn't won it in a long time get the win. I think it's really cool to see teams that are really good be good year in and year out, but it's even cooler to have a lot more parity as well. It's like Baylor being, you know, a new champion in 2021. They haven't been there in so long. That was really cool. And Gonzaga, even though they've been good year in and year out, when they made the championship game, even though they didn't win either time. I think Gonzaga, it was a really cool story. I just think it's really cool altogether. Inside the Pollen says 29-26 Las Vegas. By the way, Jeffrey, that's cool. The XFL action. Austin Williams to that Florida team were the last team to go back-to-back. It's like the Super Bowl champions last back-to-back 03-04. For sure, I think it just shows there's more parity than there's ever been. You're just seeing more and more teams that are good in all these sports where you're not seeing the back-to-back champions as much. College football, you had it more often with Alabama recently, but outside of college football, it doesn't happen very often. The Ohio State for the win. Thanks for being here. He says Houston and Texas have never won a national title. It would be nice if one of them won it all. I think both could. Kelvin Sampson has a great team at Houston. They sometimes struggle on the offensive end, but they're a great defensive team. In Texas, they do rely a bit too much on the three-point line. But when they are hitting shots, they are lethal. They're deadly. They are a team that is going to be really tough to beat overall. I think that if Texas is making shots and they're getting to the paint, knocking free throws down, Rodney Terry's done a great job with that squad, keeping them together after Chris Beard and his dismissal. I think that overall Texas could win it. So both those teams could win. But everyone, thanks for being here. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. But thanks so much for being here, everybody. Austin said, I would like to see UConn win. Well, they won it more recently with Jim Calhoun. They've definitely won it more recently, but they haven't won it in a few years. A team like Indiana hasn't won it since 1987, so that would be new. But to the Ohio State for the wins point, you haven't seen a Houston or Texas win, so that would be cool. He also says it would be nice to see Gonzaga finally win it all also. I think they need to win it soon. You look at Gonzaga, if they don't win it soon with Mark Few, once he retires, especially if Gonzaga moves to the Big 12, their chances of winning are going to reduce. I'm not saying they're going to fall off a cliff once Mark Few's gone, but they need to win it while he's there. Inside the Pylon says, does Houston have the ability to win it all? Is it better to have your sloppy, hard-caught win game early than it is to have it later in the tournament? For sure, if you win sloppily, then that's fine, because next game you can play better. I think Houston did play better against Auburn than they did against Northern Kentucky, but Marcus Sasser, his injury's key. He's going to have to get healthy and play well for Houston to have a really good chance. Inside the Pylon says, I got Houston Gonzaga. I could see that. I could see a lot of these matchups. All these matchups that people are sending in, I could see. It just shows the parity. No team is just downright better than most of these other teams. You look at all these teams, they're pretty even. Alabama might have a lot more talent than a lot of these teams, but so many of these teams could beat these other teams. I think that makes this March Madness unique. I think that makes this March Madness so amazing. The Ohio State for the win. He says, do you think Princeton can beat Baylor Creighton in the Sweet 16? Princeton looks so good and makes so few mistakes, and their offensive rebound was so good against Missouri today. I think they could beat both teams. Creighton's a really balanced team. A really balanced team overall. The Blue Jays have 5 starters that are great on offense. I think you look at Baylor, their 3 guards are really talented. I think both matchups will be tough for Princeton, but I think Princeton could win. I really don't know who would be an easier game for them. I would say Creighton, but again, Ron Kalkbrenner is really good, and Arthur Kaluma is really good. And then they have Trey Alexander and Ron Nimhart and Baylor Shireman. That starting 5 is one of the best in college basketball. And then Baylor, you've got L.J. Cryer, Keontae George, Adam Flagler. And you've got Jonathan Chama-Chachua, Flo Thamba, Jalen Bridges. Both the teams are really good. And they have a lot of players across the board. So I think Princeton could win, but it will be a lot harder for them to win against either of those teams than the 2 they've already beat. Even though some people would argue with Arizona, but Arizona had a really bad game. And Arizona was susceptible to losing to teams they should have beaten all year long. They've done it several times. Inside the Pylon said, I know this is a Monday question, but who is your Final Four as it stands? That's a great question. It's a tough question. Alabama, I think, could go all the way there. I think Houston could. I think Gonzaga could. I think that one's a little bit tougher for Gonzaga, but I think Houston and Alabama could. That's a really tough question, though. I think Arkansas really could. The way they're playing right now, they're a really good team. Arkansas is a really good team. But it'll be a lot more clear after tomorrow with the results for sure. Like you said, it's a Monday question more. But it should be very interesting. And I could see almost every single team that's still alive right now with a potential chance to go to the Final Four. Obviously, a little bit tougher for like a Fairleigh Dickinson, even though you never know. But a lot of these teams, Indiana, Miami, all these teams, they got to play each other. Whoever wins that game could go to the Final Four. It's just so many teams. I don't think there's a runaway. But thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. We had a fantastic stream. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. So many great games today in college basketball. And Alabama and Maryland wrapped up the day, and Alabama got a big win to move on to the Sweet 16. The Ohio State for the win. He says East region is going to be interesting. Tennessee has impressed me so much. It would be nice to see Tennessee or Marquette win the East region. The statement right there alone, what you just said, Tennessee has impressed you so much, is amazing. Because a lot of people did not believe in Tennessee. And then what they did against Duke. Olivier Nakuma having 27 points, playing a fantastic game. Their defense was there. Rick Barnes has a team that possibly peaking at the right time, especially on the defensive end. They really struggled this season in SEC play. But it's really nice to see Tennessee playing good basketball and get that snot off their back. The fact that they could not advance far in the tournament. A lot of people said they just could not do it, but they're playing much better basketball. Rick Barnes has a team to be proud of as of late. Inside the Pylon, I think Marquette will come out of the East. That's another team. All those teams I've mentioned, didn't even mention Marquette. Marquette's another team. Shaka Smart probably has his best offensive team ever. At VCU, Texas, and now Marquette, he's had great defensive teams. He's had some good offensive teams, but Tyler Kolek is a great league guard, and they are just fantastic on offense and defense. Probably you could argue the best overall team he's ever had. The Ohio State for the win says Tennessee has never even made it to the Final Four. Furthest Tennessee has ever made it was Elite Eight in 2010. That's amazing. You would think Tennessee would have done more than that, but they haven't. And Rick Barnes has struggled throughout his coaching career of not advancing far at Texas and at Tennessee. He got fired at Texas for that reason. But you look at Rick Barnes here, potentially not being a Hall of Famer because he hasn't won those big games. Hey, he could this year. It's possible. Inside the Pylon says if FD or FAU beat Tennessee, then I don't think they get past Marquette in the Elite Eight. Yeah, Marquette has a great path. Marquette is a great path. They're a great team. But again, no team can have a bad game. Single elimination tournament. You look at all these teams, and we're talking about how great they're all playing. One bad game, and they're out. That's what makes it so hard to predict. Because you're looking at these teams, and you're predicting them to play at their best. You're not predicting them to have a bad game, but just one bad game, and that could be all for some of these teams. But you're definitely right inside the Pines. I think Marquette could be a team that goes far as well. I mean, UConn, Kansas State, Xavier, all those teams play tomorrow. Those are potential teams that could go far. A lot of people probably are off Xavier since they struggle against Kennesaw State, but they are a great offensive team. They struggle on the defensive end, which is why Kennesaw State was doing really well early. But on offense, they're a great team. But just so many great games in March Madness in the round of 64 and the round of 32. And after tomorrow, we're going to be moving on to the Sweet 16. It's going to be getting really interesting. The Ohio State for the win. Marquette is great, but you can't overlook Michigan State and Tom Izzo in March. If Marquette doesn't overlook anybody, they have a good chance to win the East region. 100% can't overlook anybody, and you are completely correct. Tom Izzo has not had an elite team in a few years. It's been a few seasons since he's had a team that you could say could go all the way, but it's still Tom Izzo. It's still March Madness. Anything can happen. And Tom Izzo has been great throughout his career in March Madness, so it's possible. Inside the pile, I said earlier, I got Houston Gonzaga, and now he's got crystal ball prediction Marquette versus Houston for Natty. So a change of heart potentially. But still, so many potential matchups for the championship. I think it could be, up to about 10 different matchups, 12 different matchups. I could see so many different teams, so many different scenarios. Again, that's what makes it so interesting to debate and talk about, because you don't know. We've seen the madness already. That's why they call it March Madness. There's no other nickname you could call it. The Ohio State for the win. Great stream. Have a great rest of the night. Thanks for being here. I'm about to wrap up as well. Getting pretty close, but still having fun chatting with you guys. Inside the Pylons said exactly. Just as Purdue, they overlook FDU. You cannot overlook anybody. And thankfully, an update, they say on David Singleton, the player for UCLA. He has a high ankle sprain. He did not break his ankle, but still he might not be able to play. That's good news there. Inside the Pylons said there are just too many great potential matchups, bro. I agree. I mean, your mind could change on a dime. Someone asks you who's going to be the champion, and then 2 minutes later, I've changed my mind. Michael Williams says Izzo, he's going to have the boys coached up now. I believe that. He might even break another clipboard. He might have to break another clipboard to get the win. But whatever works. I wouldn't want to be the clipboard. For sure. But like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Thanks everyone for being here. Austin Williams. FDU had Purdue shook with their defense. For sure. And the thing is, they just played with hustle. That was a big key. They just played with hustle. It's not like they did anything special. They didn't do anything that a lot of other teams did. They were the shortest team in Division I. But they just played with hustle. And if you play hard, you can beat almost any team if you give everything you've got, and the other team isn't shooting well. Inside the Pylons said 35-26 Vipers with around 3:30 left, Jeffrey. That's crazy. A lot of upsets in the XFL going on as well. But March Madness, definitely the perfect nickname for this time of year, because you never know what's going to happen. But Arkansas, what a big win over Kansas. The national champions from last year went down. Arkansas played a fantastic game. I mean, they're talented. Eric Musselman said it best himself about his team. He said, we can beat anybody. We can lose to anybody. And I agree with that sentiment. They're a great team. Arkansas, they have great players. They're going to have top draft picks as well, but they sometimes just play badly. But against Kansas, especially in the second half, they were great. They were a great basketball team. And they move on. They won 72-71. 25 points from Devontae Davis, 21 points from Ricky Council. They got the win. Goes to show you any team can beat any team. Kansas went down, so Alabama, they could go down as well. They're not out of the woods of any team. You don't want to go ahead and crown anybody. Michael Williams is Purdue or fraud from the get-go. I'm not saying that they were a completely bad team, but Purdue definitely was a team that all season long, their style of play just was not going to work in March. And the way they are every single year, they lost to North Texas in 2021. They lost to St. Peter's in 2022. They just lost to Fairleigh Dickinson in 2023. They're always losing to teams that are really low, the little small schools like that. And I just think overall, it just shows you Purdue's style of play does not work in March. And the way they play in the Big Ten, they go to the foul line a lot. They were the team that went to the free throw line most in college basketball. It's not sustainable. You have to make shots to win. Free throws are great. It's great that you can get the whistles and go to the line, hit some free throws, you can get some wins in conference play, but it's not going to happen in the NCAA tournament. And even if you get some whistles and get to the foul line, Purdue did outshoot Fairleigh Dickinson at the free throw line, but they didn't make shots. Fairleigh Dickinson made enough shots. They played great defense. Austin Williams says Zach Edey should have had 35, 20, and 5 against Fairleigh Dickinson, but that hustle shook his confidence. I mean, again, their tallest player was 6'6". Fairleigh Dickinson's average height as a team was 6'3", and they gave Zach Edey fits. It was amazing. Inside the Pylon says Zach Edey still ended with 21 points, 15 rebounds, 3 blocks, but it wasn't efficient either. And plus, in the second half, Purdue stopped passing the ball to him as much. They were rattled, passing the ball around the perimeter, and they were trying to hit jump shots that they couldn't make. Basically, Fairleigh Dickinson was basically begging them to shoot the three. They didn't want Zach Edey to get the ball. They were begging Purdue to take the shots. They were banking on them missing. And if Purdue hits those open threes, they win the game. But Purdue missed the open shots. Fletcher Loyer, Braden Smith, Mason Gillis, Ethan Morton, Caleb First. All those guys had great looks. Brandon Newman. But they missed threes. I mean, even the commentators were like, they're letting them shoot the three. They're leaving them open. So to inside the Pylon's point, I don't really feel Zach Edey was the problem. He technically wasn't the problem, but Fairleigh Dickinson was letting them shoot the three. They were letting Purdue shoot threes, and Purdue was not making them. And for a team that has Zach Edey, who's a mismatch nightmare, and you get those wide open looks, because when you are a team that has a player of his size down low, you're going to get the doubles and the triple teams. You got to make the shots. If you're not going to make the shots, then you're just not a good basketball team. And I know that, again, in a single elimination tournament, one bad game you lose. But Purdue had several games this year where they played bad. They just found ways to win late in the Big Ten. And I don't think Purdue's a bad team. I think they have a good offensive style that fits for them with Zach Edey. I think Matt Painter's a great coach that gets his players to play that style of play, but you got to make shots. And Fairleigh Dickinson left Purdue wide open. They couldn't make shots. And then they didn't even want to take the shots because they were afraid. So then they were going to miss, and then they started taking tough twos. So Purdue is a good team, but they have a flawed offensive system that doesn't really work in March Madness, and you've got to make shots. And they just didn't. And Purdue's going to keep getting upset early in the tournament if they keep playing the style of play that they do and they don't make shots. Because if Purdue hits 10 threes in that game, they win. But they only hit like 4. They were 4 of 23 from 3. And with as many open looks as they had, they could have shot 40 threes. Again, Fairleigh Dickinson was forcing them to shoot threes. As Inside the Pylon says, FDU forced Zach to stay out of the post. He didn't get into a rhythm. FDU said, if you want to beat us, then dive at the 3 line or deep twos. And that's what happened. And I think Purdue hurt themselves because even though they did shoot badly from 3, they shot badly from 3. They were like 4 of 23 from 3. It was the fact that a lot of those plays, Purdue faked the 3, drove in a little bit, and took a long 2. I think if Purdue shoots 35 threes, they hit 7 or 8, and they win. But instead, they took a lot of tough 2s, and that's what lost them the game. Yes, they were missing their threes, but they should have hit the shots. It is what it is. I just think overall, you look at Purdue, again, they're a flawed team. They need to find a way to be able to make shots along with having their center play. The year Purdue went to the Elite Eight, Carson Edwards made shots. Ryan Klein made shots. Those players. They made shots. It wasn't the center. And it was ironic that the year they did that, they had Caleb Swanigan at center. He was a shorter guy. It wasn't one of the big guys like Isaac Harms or Haas and all those other guys they had. Matt Harms, Isaac Haas, Zach Edey. It wasn't those guys. It was Caleb Swanigan. And you had Carson Edwards and Ryan Klein, Dakota Mathias. Those guys made shots. Purdue is a good basketball team when they don't have a 7'5" or 4 or 3 center and they have shooters. So I just think overall, if Purdue finds a way in the future, I think it could even work with having a 7'4" center, but you need shooters. And if you can get guys to make shots, I think Purdue could be a really good team in the future. Inside the Pollen Nest, if Marquette wins the Marquette and they win the East region, I think they can. I mean, again, Marquette's a balanced team. They're good on both sides of the ball. They're good on offense. They're good on defense. Cam Jones is a great guard. Tyler Kolek's a great guard. Oso Ighodaro is one of the most improved players in the country. A lot of people don't even know who he is if you don't follow Big East basketball or Marquette, but he's a great center. Undersized, but he plays with a lot of heart. But Marquette has a good team. They had some struggles in Big East play, but everyone did. The Big East is tough. But they won the conference and the conference tournament. So I do think it's possible. I really, really am high on Marquette. But any team could be beat. They could lose to Michigan State tomorrow. That doesn't mean they're not a good team, though. Because Tom Izzo's a great coach. Michigan State has good players that can shoot threes. They're going to have to make shots to win. I mean, Michigan State, they could have lost to USC if Boogie Ellis was making shots. But Boogie Ellis was cold. USC couldn't make shots. And overall, that's why Michigan State won. But it's going to be interesting for sure. I'm really looking forward to the round of 32 tomorrow or today, depending on your time zone. And I'm really looking forward to the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight. And we're really going to see what happens. Any team can beat any team. No team is safe for victory. It could go down the wire in a lot of these games. One shot could be the difference, one play. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think any team necessarily is a major favorite. Michael Williams and Zach Edey should have dominated this tournament. Completely agree. I mean, he's a beast. I mean, he's a good player. He's 7'4". His footwork is good enough for his size. He's got a good jump hook. When he gets fouled, he hits free throws at a good enough rate. But I just think Purdue needed to make shots. I've seen Purdue advance in the tournament. And when they advance, it's because they have shooters. It's like Indiana. Trace Jackson Davis has been great for Indiana for 4 years now. But this is the year that Indiana shot the best from three. You look at Jalen Hood-Schifino, Miller Kopp, Trey Galloway. They're making more shots this year. Indiana's not a great three-point shooting team, but this is the best three-point shooting team that Indiana's had since the Tom Crean years. And Indiana's better. Purdue was a really good team when they had shooters. That's what's going to come down to. You have to make shots in March. If you want to win basketball games, I think a good center is important, but you have to have shooters. That's why a lot of people think Miami could be dangerous because they don't have a lot of center play. Norchad O'Meara is 6'7", and he's basically the center of Miami, but they have good shooters. Isaiah Wong, Nigel Pack, good guards. Guards win in March. That's why Baylor won it in 2021. Kansas won it in 2022 because Remy Martin came off the bench and had a fantastic game in the championship game. So you need good post play, you need good center play, but guards are so important in March. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see for sure. Texas, they beat Penn State. Penn State was a team that I think could have gone far in the tournament, but they couldn't make shots. Not like they did in the first round game against Texas A&M. You have to make your threes. You have to make shots. And it's going to be very interesting to see which team does because, again, one bad game and you could lose. All these teams we're talking about, one bad game and they're out. Alabama could lose in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. All these teams could go down. Marquette, Xavier, Indiana, Gonzaga, Houston. It's going to be a lot of fun, though. I'm glad March Madness is here. I love this time of year. It's going to be sad when it's over, but as always next year, We get to remember this past season when it's over and all the years before this year. Just so many great March Madnesses that we've had this year. Just seems like it's going to be another great year. Gary Davis, roll, Tide, roll. Thanks for being here, Gary. It was a really good game for Alabama. They definitely showcased why they are a dangerous team, why they could be really good in March Madness. Down the stretch, could get to a Final Four, maybe win a national championship. They have the talent. The consistency, if they can keep that up, playing well, game in and game out, they could get the job done. Michael Williams says, just goes to show you there's no one on the team. One player cannot do it all, and these were some very lackluster guards Matt Painter had this season. I agree. I think that part of the problem is that Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer were freshmen, and it's tough for freshmen to play at a high level. But they still, regardless of whether they're freshmen or not, they're starting. So they have to play well if you want to win. And I think that overall, Purdue's guards just struggled too much. They couldn't make shots. Again, the open shots. You got to make the open ones. How many teams have we seen hit tough shots already in March and in previous March Madnesses? We've seen so many guys hit ridiculous shots. Purdue missed open threes. Inside the Pylon says, this has been a great March Madness day, and I hope tomorrow is just as good, if not better. I think it could be just as good. I mean, you might not have the major upset like Arkansas over Kansas, but you could. But it should be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. There should be a lot of high-level games. I think Indiana-Miami could be a great game. I think Baylor-Creighton could be a great game as well. Gonzaga-TCU, Marquette-Michigan State. I think all those games could be really good. Kentucky-Kansas State. Every single game has potential to be great. In this Alabama-Maryland game, even though it wasn't close, you saw a lot of high-level basketball. Sometimes the games don't always have to be close, and it doesn't always have to go to the wire. Just watching these players play at a high level, seeing the talent, especially knowing a player like Brandon Miller is not going to be in college basketball anymore after this tournament, these one-and-dones. You get to see them play, even if it's just 1 year in this tournament, giving it everything they've got, all their talent on display. And it's awesome. You just can't beat it. I think that's what makes March Madness so awesome, is seeing the blend of the experienced players, the 4- and 5th-year seniors, the freshmen as well, all the head coaches, all the different styles of play, all these different conferences and teams getting to play each other, the smaller conferences getting the action as well. You get the Cinderellas, just everything. Inside the Pylon set for tomorrow, give me Xavier, Kentucky, Marquette, St. Mary's, Creighton, and FDU. I'm torn because I like both teams. Yeah, I think that Fairleigh Dickinson can win, but it's going to be really tough for them to beat Florida Atlantic. They're a fundamentally sound team. Dusty May's a great head coach. He's going to get a Power 5 job really soon. He should anyway. Ron Shed says, roll Tide. Ron says, roll Tide, roll. So many Bama fans in the house. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. But thanks everyone for being here. So many Alabama fans, and deservedly so. They have a great basketball team. You guys have a great team. I like Alabama a lot. I'm really glad that they're playing good basketball. It's nice to see them good in something besides football. And in basketball, they're playing much better. Nate Oates has done a great job. Inside the Pylon says Vipers 35, Orlando 32 with 35 seconds left, Jeffrey. Wow, that game's going down to the wire. The XFL's got some interesting games. Well, I know most people definitely more interested in the March Madness for sure, but the XFL is awesome. But again, I was really, really impressed with Alabama tonight. They played a really good game. I mean, they played good on offense and on defense. Shut Maryland down. That's what you got to do. You can't let the smaller team hang around. You just got to play great. But it's going to be really interesting to see what happens tomorrow. We're definitely going to maybe see some separation. The round of 32 will be over. You get into the Sweet 16. But I am looking forward to the games tomorrow. Should be awesome. But Alabama, I'm, like I said, so happy for all the Alabama fans. Getting the big one over Maryland. Stinks for the Terps. But Alabama showcasing that talent. They have a great team. I think they definitely look like one of the best teams in college basketball when they're playing at their best. They're almost unbeatable. But it's about being consistent game in and game out. But yes, Alabama was a really, really, really good team today. Brandon Miller, he only had 0 points in their first tournament game. But they found a way to win that one against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. And then he had a better game. Today, but his teammates still played well. And that's the thing. When you have great teammates, because overall, you can't have a star player. I remember when Alabama had Colin Sexton. Again, Colin Sexton was a great player, but they did not have the roster around him. But still, I think that this year's team goes to show that you cannot have one great player. Even Duke, they have a really good team, but they didn't get enough contributions from their whole entire roster. They had a deep team, but it was only Tyrese Proctor in that second half, and he's a great freshman. But you needed Jeremy Roach. You needed Kyle Filipowski. But Alabama, you had Brandon Miller, Mark Sears, Charles Bediako, Javon Quinterly, Noah Gurley. All these guys just playing at a high level. That's what's going to make Alabama dangerous. If all those guys play well against San Diego State, they'll win. But it's going to be really, really fun to see what happens tomorrow. All the matchups for the Sweet 16, we'll find out after tomorrow. But for all the Alabama fans, definitely the Crimson Tide were dangerous today. And as Ron Shedd points out, when he gets 100%, other teams going to have some trouble, and that's going to be a problem for other teams. Brandon Miller's not even 100%. He's out there just rolling on everybody, driving to the hoop, hitting shots. And when he gets healthy, it's going to be really interesting. But his teammates are the reason, though, that they're a great team. You don't want to take anything away from Brandon Miller, for sure. But his teammates deserve so much credit. I mean, they shut down Maryland. I mean, Jameer Young, he's a really good guard for Maryland. He averaged 16 points this season per game, but he was shut down. He was rattled by the length of Mark Sears and Javon Quinterly at the guard position. They shut down Julian Reese on the block, got him in foul trouble. And Charles Bediako was really good on him. Inside the Pylons says just went final Vegas 35-32. Sorry, Inside the Pylons. Vegas got the win. But in college basketball, just so many great games. I mean, Princeton, they're showing Princeton right now, the 15 seed, they're in the Sweet 16. They said the third 15 seed to reach Sweet 16 in the last 3 tournaments. Just goes to show more of these teams, these smaller schools are getting the job done. They believe they can win. And all you have to have is the belief. If you don't believe, then it doesn't matter. You have to go out there and believe you have a chance to win. Congrats, man. Thanks, Inside the Pylons. Sometimes it's a lucky guess for sure. But I do think that with all these upsets that have happened in the NCAA tournament, it's giving more of these teams the chance. And I think the transfer portal, a lot of these teams are getting transfers from other schools. The higher schools, they're not playing these guys, and they're entering the portal, going down a level. And I think that that's been a big difference. And the fact that a lot of these schools are from Jersey, St. Peter's, FDU, Princeton, it's crazy. It's really crazy. New Jersey basketball, these smaller schools are doing even better than Seton Hall and Rutgers. Seton Hall and Rutgers in the NIT, and FDU and Princeton are in the tournament winning games. It's insane. But man, March Madness has been a lot of fun. Just been so many great results. Looking forward to the matchups tomorrow, but it was a great day of basketball today to reflect on. Think about all the results. Tennessee with a big win over Duke. I thought Duke really struggled with Tennessee's defense. Ron Shedd said, just wait when we have that 12-game college football playoff. Yeah, I completely agree with you. The 12-team college football playoff should be interesting. I still think March Madness is definitely going to have a lot more parity because of the fact, basketball, even if you have a lot of talent, you could have a bad shooting night, just have a bad game overall. The other team wins. Football is still more about the lines of scrimmage and the talent. But even with NIL, it might have more parity. You might have more parity. A lot of these teams are going to be playing well. I think you could potentially see, some upset, especially if more of these teams can get good. If Miami can get good again in football, Nebraska. But still, I think March Madness will have that edge. But the 12-team playoff could be really good if you can get a lot of teams to be good. Ron Shed says, I agree. But I am looking forward to the 12-team playoff to an extent. I do have some reservations about it because, again, I don't think there'll be as much parity. I kind of wish that the conferences were the way they were in the 90s and the teams were the way they were in the 90s, where there were more good teams. It wasn't just Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, if you had a lot more good teams. But still, it should be a lot of fun. Inside the Pile said there really isn't much parity in college football like there is in March Madness. No, I mean, you don't have FDU winning a team like that in football. Ron Shed says Kentucky game tomorrow going to be interesting. That's going to be a good game. Kentucky is a team. Inside the Pile says Kentucky all day, baby. Kentucky's a team that has a lot of talent. John Calipari's found a way to get his team to play better basketball down the stretch of the season. But Kansas State's really good. Jerome Tang, his first year as head coach of the Wildcats, has done a fantastic job. And you look overall at Keontae Johnson, his story is amazing after his collapse on the floor at Florida. People were praying for him hard, didn't know if he was going to be playing college basketball anymore, but he got back on the floor, transferred to Kansas State, and has had a great season. Marquise Noel, he's been fantastic, 5'8" guard, averaging 17.7 assists. So Kentucky's going to have to slow them down. Kentucky didn't have their best offensive game against Providence. They actually struggled against Providence on the offensive end, but their defense was really good. So they're going to have to play good defense against Kansas State and probably score more points. Inside the Pile says Kentucky really a 6-seed, or were they underranked? I think that they really struggled this season at times. They really struggled. They had a lot of bad performances in the SEC. They lost to South Carolina. They lost to Vanderbilt twice. They didn't have a lot of great wins. I would almost argue that they were seeded a little bit, potentially too high. Like being a 6, I thought they could have been a 7 or an 8. Some people maybe think because Kentucky's a blue blood, they should have been a 4 or 5. But they didn't have a great resume. But Kentucky got a 6 seed. Beat Providence. Providence was a solid team. But Bryce Hopkins, the Kentucky transfer, had a bad game. And Kentucky's defense was really solid. And Kentucky did enough on the offensive end. Ron Shed says Arkansas can make it to the Elite Eight. Arkansas's team is playing great. Even if they had lost to Kansas, it doesn't even matter. If they had a loss to Kansas, they played a fantastic game. Looked like one of the best teams in college basketball today, especially the second half. First half, struggled a little bit, but the second half, they were great. But thanks to everyone for being here. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. But thanks to everyone for being here. Alabama fans definitely got a big victory tonight over Maryland. But Saturday, the games on Saturday in college basketball, March Madness in the round of 32 wrapping up. But still going to be so many great games tomorrow. Should be some more big results. But it was a huge day in college basketball overall. Every single day in March Madness has been awesome, I think, so far. There hasn't been a bad day. Even when you had the first 4 games, those were cool. The NITs had some good games as well. But the round of 64 delivered, now the round of 32. We got one more day of the round of 32 tomorrow. Should be a lot of fun. A lot of great matchups. It's really hard to predict the winners. I mean, you look at the match, I think potentially Xavier could have an advantage over Pittsburgh. I think K-State, Kentucky could go either way. Marquette, Michigan State. Marquette has a great chance to win that one, but it is Tom Izzo. UConn, St. Mary's. St. Mary's is a good basketball team, but UConn has a lot more talent than St. Mary's, but St. Mary's could spoil their day. Who knows? Baylor, Creighton's a really solid game. 2 teams that have a lot of talent, but Baylor has great guards, but Creighton is Ryan Kalkbrenner. Florida Atlantic, Fairleigh Dickinson. Florida Atlantic plays like they did against Memphis. They can win that one, but FDU could spoil the party if they play like they did against Purdue. Indiana, Miami could go either way. A contrast of styles. Miami has great guard play. Indiana's Trace Jackson Davis. That should be interesting. Gonzaga, TCU. TCU is Mike Miles, but Gonzaga's Drew Timme. I just think there's great games overall. Every game could be fantastic. Should be a lot of fun. But I'm looking forward to the games. Like the stream down below. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Share the stream on social media. But it should be a fantastic games tomorrow in March Madness. Should be fantastic the way it was today. There's a lot of great games today as well. I've been enjoying March Madness all around. But thanks to everyone for being here tonight. It is getting late, around 1 a.m. Probably about to wrap up. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. To answer Ron Shedd's question, what do you think about San Diego State against Alabama? I think overall Alabama is a team that they have a lot of talent. They have the length and the physicality to definitely match up with San Diego State's defense. San Diego State has a really good defense, but I think Alabama has the physicality on the defensive end as well to slow them down on offense. And I think Alabama's offense will be able to handle San Diego State's defense. I think they have the advantage, but you definitely don't want to overlook the Aztecs. They're a really good team. They're seated where they are for a reason. They're really solid. I think Alabama has the advantage there, but I could definitely see San Diego State getting that win if they play a great game. But I do think Alabama has a little bit of the advantage. Michael Williams says, nobody's talking about Kentucky. Better believe Calipari's going to get Kentucky ready to make a Final Four run. They could. But that's a tough matchup against Kansas State. The Wildcats are really solid out of the Big 12. They're having a really good season. So Kentucky's going to have to bring their A game if they want to get the win. Which should be a good game. I'm looking forward to that game for sure. I mean, if you look at Calipari, he hasn't been as far in the tournament in a long time. He needs a run. A lot of Kentucky fans are upset with him, but he needs a run for sure. But he has a team that could do it. They're playing really good defense at the right time on offense. They're starting to improve a little bit, but on the defensive end is where they've been solid, especially in that game against Providence. They were good on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to have to play great defense against Kansas State. But should be some great games tomorrow. But it's 1:09 a.m. Thanks everyone for being here. It's getting late. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Like the stream down below. Share the stream on social media. But it was a great day of college basketball. I cannot wait for tomorrow. I'll probably be live streaming a game or two. I have to figure out my schedule. But thanks everyone for being here. You guys made the stream awesome. You guys are the reason this was a fantastic stream. Thanks everyone for being here. Really good win for the Crimson Tide over Maryland. They had a fantastic game. Ron Shedd says, I respect Kentucky, beautiful state. Good night, y'all. Thanks for being here, Ron Shedd. Hope to see you guys return soon. Thanks, everyone, for being here. You guys made the stream great. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. But I will see you guys tomorrow with a couple live stream, probably one. I don't know about two, but we will see. I'll definitely try to live stream at least once, but it should be a lot of fun. Take care all until the next stream. Thanks, James Scott. But thanks for being here, everybody. Good night. It was a great night of March Madness. Thanks, everyone, for being here. You guys were awesome. And I will see you next time. Thanks for being here, everybody.